Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Louis Trujillo,
Present. Okay.
Councilor David Romero,
Here.
Councilor Elaine Rodriguez. Here. Councilor Michael Montoya,
Present.
Councilor David Ulibarri Jr.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to pause and remember the people in our community who have passed away, most recently with COVID, and I'd like to remember Josephine Harrison, a good friend and a co-worker of mine. Also Max Salazar from Upper Town. And in tonight's memorial and proclamation for Suicide Awareness Month, remembering our friend Steve Jordan, who left us in March. Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, approval of the agenda.
Mayor, make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
There's a motion by Councilman Romero to approve the agenda as presented. I'll entertain a second, please.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
There's a second by Councilman Montoya. Roll call, please.
Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilor Ulibarri Jr.
Yes.
Councilor Montoya,
Yes.
Councilor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, next order is public input. I have 3 separate ones for public input. With your permission, I'll go ahead and read them into the record.
Sure.
The first one is from Christina Caffrey. She says, I wish to submit these public comments regarding the resolution number 2138 that will be considered at the Las Vegas City Council meeting tonight. The resolution confuses and conflates terminology regarding cannabis. The Cannabis Regulation Act, NMSA 1978, Section 262C-2 is the definition section. The broadcast definition is cannabis establishment, which includes 8 categories of various types of operation, including cannabis producer and cannabis retail. The definition for cannabis producer is a person that 1, cultivates cannabis plants, 2, has unprocessed cannabis products tested by a cannabis testing laboratory, 3, transports unprocessed cannabis products only to other cannabis establishments, or 4, sells cannabis products wholesale. And the definition of cannabis retailer is a person that sells cannabis products to qualified patients, primary caregivers, or reciprocal participants, or directly to consumers. Las Vegas proposed ordinance confuses these terms. For example, the resolution states, each producer shall obtain a city business license annually per calendar year, including the additional fee for the appropriate license acquired by the CDD, which shall be as follows, and then there follows a list of fees for 10 different operational categories. But a producer is the entity that only does cultivation. The more proper way to phrase this would be, each cannabis establishment operating within the city shall obtain a city business license annually per calendar year, including the additional fee for the appropriate license acquired by the CDD, which shall be as follows. The proposal to change each cannabis establishment a city fee is also confused as to vertically integrated cannabis establishment. Vertically integrated cannabis establishments will most likely have locations all over the state and only have 1 retail location or 1 other premises within Las Vegas. For example, New Mexico Top Organics Ultra Health is a vertically integrated cannabis establishment that has a cultivation location in Bernalillo and over 20 retail locations across the state, including 1 in New Mexico. It does not make sense for Las Vegas to charge Ultra Health a larger fee when its only presence in Las Vegas is 1 retail location. It would make more sense to charge vertically integrated licenses for only the premises actually located in Las Vegas. Thank you. The second one is in reference to Garfield Avenue. Mayor and City Council members, good afternoon. My name is Joseph E. Romero, and I am the owner of the property at 1034 Railroad Avenue in Las Vegas. I understand that the street, Garfield Avenue, that borders my property has been brought up for discussion by the City Council. I am interested in purchasing this property if it will be sold. I would appreciate if I could be notified of any decisions made by the City of Las Vegas concerning this property. I can be contacted by phone 429-2579 or by email. I appreciate your time and attention to this matter. Sincerely, Joseph E. Romero. And the third, dear Mayor and Councilors, tonight the Mayor is requesting that all boards, commissions, and committees return to virtual meetings due to the recent uptick in COVID cases. The large number of COVID infections are clearly coming from crowded indoor places like jails and schools. We can't empty the jails and we can't stop people from earning a living and shopping for life's necessities, but the council can definitely regulate schools and sporting events. We have very good distance learning technology. Why not send all students home for 90 days? From the elementary students all the way up to the college level, no person classes and no sports for 90 days. Masks and vaccinations have proven grossly insufficient to defeat this virus. A stay-at-home order for all students and a 90-day cancellation of sporting events is the most effective way to stop the virus transmission. Why doesn't anyone have the courage to lead the way? Come on, City Council, be brave. Signed,
Who is-
Michael Martinez.
Michael Martinez?
That concludes public input, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. Is there an address and a phone number associated with that? I can get it from you.
I have an email address.
Okay, thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, next order of business is Mayor's appointments, reports, and recognitions and proclamations.
Thank you.
Not sure which one you wanted to do first, Mr. Mayor.
I will do the proclamation since we have family members here for Steve Jordan. Welcome Lori and welcome Brianna. Thank you. So September is National Suicide Prevention Month, and every September we're reminded about the importance of trying to prevent suicide as much as we can. And as we know, in many cases, spontaneous things happen and family and friends can't react in that way all the time. However, this proclamation is just a reminder that it's alive and well in our community, and me having lost 2 friends by suicide in the last 6 months, it rings home to me, and bothers me deeply. And so I thought it fitting that this proclamation just wouldn't go out to the world or to our community without putting a face to this proclamation, and that's that of our friend Steve Jordan that we lost in March. To my estimation, I think it's 6 months, and appropriately looking at my friend's calendar last night, I found that it was his birthday. His birthday's coming up the Friday or Saturday? Friday. So we have with us tonight his widow, Lori, and his daughter, Brianna, to accept this proclamation on behalf of our community. The City of Las Vegas community lost a valued member and friend on March 13th, 2021 with the death of Steve Jordan. And whereas September is known as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, it's intended to help promote awareness by learning how to help those around us and how to talk about suicide without increasing the risk of harm, and whereas suicide thoughts can affect anyone regardless of age, gender, race, orientation, income level, religion, or background, it's the 10th leading cause of death among adults in the United States and the 2nd leading cause of death among people ages 10 to 24. And whereas the City of Las Vegas publicly states and places their full support behind local educators, mental health professionals, athletic coaches, police officers, and parents as partners in supporting our community and simply being available to one another. And whereas I encourage all residents to take the time to inquire as to the well-being of their family, friends, and neighbors over the next few days, and to genuinely convey their appreciation for their existence with a simple phone call, message, handshake, or hug. Now therefore, I, Louis Trujillo, Mayor of the City of Las Vegas, along with the members of our governing body, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2021 as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, honoring Steve Jordan in the City of Las Vegas, and encourages all citizens to participate by helping someone realize that suicide is not the answer. Lori and Brianna, please come up.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I need to say, me and Steve Jordan had our birthday on the same day.
Oh,
we
really?
we used to call each other every year, and we talked and laughed, and I truly lost a real close friend, a very close friend. And we talked about everything in life and always having smiles, and he's in heaven. We miss him, and we love him.
Thank you for all the support.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys.
Love you guys.
The community is really want me to go to it.
Thank you, guys. Mr. Happy. Always please smile. Thank you, guys. Okay. Thank you. Our next proclamation is National, September is also National Recovery Month to help recognize and promote benefits of prevention, treatment, and recovery from alcohol and drug use disorders. And whereas the 2020 National Recovery theme is "Recovering is for everyone, every person, every family, every community." It reminds people in recovery and those who support them that no one is alone in the journey through recovery. And whereas behavioral health is an essential part of one's overall health and wellness, and treatment and recovery from mental and drug use disorders are possible, and whereas the mission of Recovery Month is to celebrate individuals who have achieved long-term recovery, to acknowledge those who work in the prevention, treatment, and recovery services fields, and to encourage individuals in need to seek help from New Mexico Highlands Happy Hour and the Si Se Puede group that meets daily and weekly at the university. We encourage friends and relatives of affected individuals to implement preventive measures, recognize signs and problems, and guide loved ones in need to appropriate treatment and recovery support services. And whereas now, therefore, I, the Mayor of Louis Trujillo, the Mayor of City of Las Vegas, along with members of our governing body, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2021 as National Recovery Month in the City of Las Vegas, and encourage all citizens to celebrate individuals who have achieved long-term recovery and to help individuals in need of recovery. I couldn't think of a person, a couple of people that came to mind, strong individuals who have overcome and who are overcoming the journey of recovery and do so much to help promote in the community, and have done a great job at reaching out to people in our community to assist them and to host these meetings and to make sure the doors are open at those meetings and to make sure that people are there and to get the word out. I'd like to introduce to you two individuals this evening that are here in the audience to accept the proclamation. Mr. Pete Ortiz and Mr. Rick Griego. Please come forward. Congratulations on your recovery. Good job, brother. Congratulations, Mr. Griego. Good job. Please accept this, and if you're welcome to say a few things about your groups that you work so hard for.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Just on behalf of all the recovery programs that are available here in Las Vegas and in San Miguel County, we thank Mayor and Council for this proclamation and the recognition that we do have these programs available. It is Recovery Month, but we know that this is a 365-day-a-year thing, and with the support that we've gotten from the community and from Hines University and the City of Las Vegas, we do now have meetings at the Sala de Madrid building every day, 365 days a year at noon, and also at 7:30 p.m. So if anybody knows of anybody that's looking for a change of way in life, not only are the doors open, but the program is free. So we invite everybody to be verbal with people that might be seeking help.
I just want to thank council for recognizing us. It seems like we're in that little corner and nobody even sees us, but I want to thank you guys for recognizing us.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, we have recognition of New Mexico Department of Transportation Commissioner Walter Adams and District Engineer James Gallegos.
Thank you. I want to say a few words. I welcome them and thank you personally for your help and your commitment to our community. Part of the Bridge Street project right now is part of your help and your funding, and North Grand and the beautiful signs that we have welcoming people to our community. Those are all help that we've received from Department of Transportation. But I felt it very fitting that the person who asked me for you guys to be recognized and DOT to be recognized, be the ones to present you with a Buen Vecino Award. The Buen Vecino Award started last year, and it goes out to people who are good neighbors and who have been helping the community. So thank you. Mr. Montoya?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Mr. Adams and Mr. Gallegos, can you step forward, please? For those of you that don't know Mr. Walter Adams, he's a resident here in Las Vegas, and he's also a commissioner for the New Mexico Department of Transportation, and he's actually the chairman of the commission. And Mr. Gallegos is our District 4 engineer here in District 4, which contains all the way from Pecos to Santa Rosa to Clayton to Raton to Eagle Nest and Mora and down back around to Vegas. These two gentlemen receiving this award tonight, and basically this is something the mayor came up with to acknowledge people that are good in the community or have done good in the community. And I thank you, Mayor, for that. I think it's long time coming that something like this comes up about. But either way, as the mayor mentioned, You help our little towns, our big cities, our little Wagon Mall and everybody in the district, within the district. And this year, there was like $300 and some million of road funding and bridge repairs and so forth to give away. And I'll tell you, since the New Mexico Department of Transportation Commission started probably back in 1938 or somewhere around there, today is monumental for New Mexico, especially for District 4. And I'll tell you why. District 4 received an amount of $28 million in projects. Something never heard about, never heard of. Maybe 12 million, 13 million, but never 28 million. That's a lot of money. And Red River, Eagle Nest, Mora, all the smaller communities are all taking part of this pie. And ourselves here in Las Vegas, we want to thank our commissioner and our district engineer because we received $3,666 and $3,666.70 or something like that. And that project is to do a reconstruction from Grand Avenue all the way to 7th Street on Legion Drive. So this is a pretty well deserved project, and there is some matching funds involved in it. But I'll tell you, all these things couldn't have happened without the assistance of our engineer and his staff and our staff. Maria, I thank you for putting in the applications and so forth with staff, Daniel. Those are important things. But I'll tell you, 28 millions don't grow on trees. So with that, I'm going to open up the floor, and then before I present this recognition, if there has anybody else has to say something before I present this. Mr. Romero?
Again, I can't add more to what Councilor Montoya said, but, I think we have a great team, with, Mr. Gallegos as the engineer and then Walter as chair. As Mr. Montoya said, I know on when the Highway Commission met, was a couple weeks ago, Councilor Montoya, myself, Leo was online. It's a team effort that I was telling Councilor Montoya earlier today that we've never had a joint effort between the Highway Department and the City Council and the community that we have. Earlier today, and I was going to mention that in my councilor's report, but since we're here, yesterday, one phone call, James, Mr. Gallegos met there on Church Street, on Mills and, Church Street, but, some people call it New Mexico. There was an issue where, cars are going through the fence there, and all it took was, we didn't have to go through commissioner, Mr. Gallegos is always attentive. He jumped on it. They're looking at that, what the highway can do to, prevent that. I think we've had about 3-4 accidents within the past couple of years. It's nothing caused, it's just, high speed. But, it's getting close to the housing units, and Mr. Gallegos jumped on it, and I just want to thank you. Like I've said, in my, 3 years here, my 8 years on school board, Mr. Gallegos has done an outstanding job, and Mr. Adams, same thing with you. You're always, hey, you guys need, checking in on your own with us to see, what you can do for us, and, vice versa. So we have a great relationship with the Highway Department that we've never had. So thank you guys. And those awards are, I know, sometimes, we sit in these positions that, are sometimes thankless, and, it does, I hope it means a little something too of how appreciative we are of your work that you guys do for us. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Would you like, yes, sir.
Yes, I do want to thank both of you guys. Me and my son have a business right in the end of town. It's made a difference. It's made our business look a lot better. And I did talk to Mr. Gallegos about some stuff there on the corner, and he took care of it. Thank you for doing that. And a lot of people talk about it, when coming into town, it's one of the first businesses that's in town, and it made a change. It made a change for us and for our customers and people that come in, the way it looks, the way you guys did a good job, everybody that is involved. Thank you for everything you guys do for us.
Thank you.
I'll tell you, Mr. Adams and Mr. Davis, that $1.6 million bridge project, we thank you for that too. and repaving New Mexico Avenue, and the two projects are grand. You know, I can't say more than that. We appreciate what you do for us, and I'm glad you don't forget where you come from, and appreciate everything that you have done for the citizens of Las Vegas. And with that, this is a Vecino Award 2021 in recognition of your important contribution and for your extraordinary services and dedication to the Las Vegas community. In recognition to Mr. Walter Adams, New Mexico DOT Commissioner, on this date of 9/15/21. And at this time, I'll leave you the floor. Any comments or any suggestions or?
Yes, Mayor and Council, first of all, thank you for having us here today. And it's an honor and a pleasure. And I said in our meeting 2 weeks ago that we're very blessed. And I wish that you would thank your governor and thank your legislators for the money. We ended up with $161 million to the whole state only for entities, which had never been done. And I say it's an honor for me because for as long as I'm in that position, I will do everything I can, not only to help my hometown where I grew up in, but all the surrounding areas. So the good thing is that we've been working with the legislature, and we have developed a permanent road fund, which means if there's no more money, there's $40 million for entities next year, and that will be divvied up. But put your projects together. I know you submitted a bunch of them. There's more to come, and there's a lot of light. Is that I met with Congressman Lujan last week, and he was telling me about the infrastructure bill, and if that's going to come, and there is going to be tons, billions of dollars coming to that, to New Mexico, which means it'll get funneled. So always know that as long as I'm there, I'm going to funnel everything I can here. And I'm glad to be partners with you, and I look forward to our continued relationship.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to thank you for the recognition too, Mayor and members of the council. I really think that I've been here for about 2.5 years now, and I think we really hit the ground running right off the bat. A lot has to do with Mr. Commissioner here, the Chairman of the Transportation Commission, Walter Adams, right? Because he's right here, and he, I think the guy bleeds orange, right? He thinks about the department, he thinks about getting things done. And I'm the same way, I'm just like him. So I just want to thank you. I think we've got a real good working relationship with all of you. And I've probably talked to most of you about concerns and issues that you have. Danny back here, right? We just talked yesterday. Leo, right? So we're here to help you out and support each other and get things done. Thank you.
One last thing, I'd like to give a shout out to our people, which is John Herrera and Samantha, who without them, because we're up here, but they're the ones that are making all the phone calls, doing all the paperwork. And you're only as good as your people, and they make us shine. So I would like to say that to all our employees, especially to them for this, that if it wouldn't be for them reaching out and doing what they need to do, then we wouldn't be here. And so, again, thank you. And I want to thank each and every one of you for the work you do each and every day, because I know it's not easy. So, thank you, and thank you for having us.
Thank you, Walter.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, councilors' reports?
Council.
I'll go first.
Dr.
Since I
Rodriguez.
was not able to attend last week, I have compiled a list here.
You only have 2 minutes.
And it was just issues that were, that have been brought forward by residents, not just in my ward, but throughout the city. And some of them I'm going to just mention, and would like the mayor and council to think about it. I've had a couple of residents who would like to see the opening up of positions. If people resign, they would like to see, instead of the appointment power, which we know the mayor has via the charter, that they would like to see applications put in for those type of positions, okay? The second thing I want to bring up that was brought to my attention is excessive flooding on John Street and Williams Drive. That was brought to me by a couple of residents in regards to when it rains, it gets very flooded. I told him I'd speak to Maria in the Utilities Department to see if there's something that can be done. It seems like it's been an ongoing issue for a while. In addition to that, the residents also spoke about the speeding of cars in that neighborhood. So if the police chief wouldn't mind putting some extra patrol, because there seems to be a lot of children in that neighborhood, and they're very concerned that someone's gonna get hurt. Other issues that were brought up to me was Samaritan House. I know this is an issue that has been kind of ongoing. Residents that live around that area are very concerned because they have individuals coming up onto their porches, using their outlets, sleeping on their patios and porches. So I think that's something that we probably need to address. Another issue that was brought to my attention, and I did contact Scott about this, is an ordinance on the lease permits. Leash, sorry, I said lease. The leash of dogs. Residents are in the parks, and they are saying that people are allowing for their dogs to walk around, and pit bulls are very concerned without a leash. So they asked if we could possibly post the ordinance in the park so people know that we have a leash law. Okay. Weeds, I'm gonna just reiterate what Mr. Romero said at our last meeting. The major concern is weeds around the city. However, much of my concern is the weeds that grow to 4, 5, 6 feet on Grand. And much of this is done by, and not removed by the businesses. I feel that businesses, that should be a top priority for the businesses. There's one area that I brought to the city manager attention about 6 weeks ago. I went by there and it still hasn't been addressed. And this one was a concern, and it's between Washington and Garfield, because the weeds are so high in the alleyway behind Allsup's that residents cannot drive their cars into their driveways or carports without it being scratched. They can't park their cars on the street because the land is elevated and they're senior citizens, so they can't be walking up the stairwell. So one lady who is 80 told me she was taking gravel in a wheelbarrow and putting gravel in the potholes that lead into this alleyway, and that's just ridiculous. You know, that's ridiculous. I bring this to your attention, and what I don't understand is why it has taken so long to get these things addressed, especially on for all areas with weeds, but Grand is a main travel area. I mean, we get people who are coming from out of town, visitors, and then for seniors to have to deal with this, that's a problem. I'd like to see that addressed. Even if you have to deputize the council, I'll be more than happy to go out there and write permits and let people know. But it shouldn't be taking so long to address these weed issues. And especially that tall. I went out there like 6, 7 feet tall, these weeds. Okay. The other thing that I don't want to discuss, but I do want to bring to people's attention because I got calls from businesses and residents about the patio extension for the Plaza Hotel. They were upset that the city council had approved this extension without any discussion, according to them, but I did let them know that this was not an issue that was brought to the city council. Okay, this, I feel, was a loophole that was utilized to be able to issue a permit for a year. When I was brought to my attention and I talked to the city manager about it, he informed me that the community development director and the city manager signed off on the permit, I was also informed at that time that it was a 30-day permit. When I asked for the application, I see that it's a year. So I feel as though I was lied to, and now the residents feel as though I lied to them, because I was out there talking to them before the patio was put in, and I told them, no, you know, that's not something that was on our agenda, that's not something that we had approved. And then 2 days later, they call me and send me pictures and say, you know, you lied, because look. So that makes us look bad. And I don't think that's, you know, good intentions. I think we should be working together. It's not as though we would have disapproved this. I feel as though we didn't have an opportunity to discuss it and have a lively discussion regarding this. I feel that it was a loophole used, and that's my personal opinion, by the community director and by the city manager to get this approved. I also feel as though I was lied to, because I was told it was a 30-day permit, and I come to find out it's a year permit, okay? The last thing I want to bring forward is individuals that are sitting on some of these committees would like to see or have the opportunity to attend these meetings via Zoom. They've been informed by whatever commission they sit on that they have to be in person, and I think it would be a benefit to have Zoom. And for instance, the reason I was out last week is because my granddaughter, 2 students in her class were COVID positive. She was showing symptoms, I was showing symptoms of flu, so we couldn't leave. We had to stay home until we were tested, but I more than likely could have attended a meeting via Zoom. So I think we need to really consider opening up to Zoom possibilities for people who cannot attend any of these meetings, commission meetings, any of the meetings that are attended throughout the month in person. Thank you for your time. I didn't mean to bring up all these issues, but I feel, I wasn't here last week, so I wasn't able to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Olivari?
Yes, Mr. Manager, City Manager, I got some calls from some residents on Hot Springs area, on the housing area. There's an arroyo that's right on the side of it, and it's really bad. People are throwing trash, they're sleeping out there. I don't know if you can talk to our housing director and see what he can do about it. Maybe thinking about a fence around that area, but it's really bad. Maybe you can have code enforcement to go and check it out. There are some concerns there, so if you want to check that house for us. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
I just wanted to kind of touch up, thank you, Danny and Maria. And I know you, last week I had brought up about the street sweeper. I know it was out and about this, you know, from last week to this week, so thank you. And then also to city manager, thank you for, you know, some of the code enforcement. I know there's, you know, so many items, but, you know, thank you for kind of taking an initiative and getting some things started there. So I just want to, you know, it's not always, you know, complaints. It's thank you guys also. Thank you.
Mr. Montoya?
Madam Councilor Rodriguez, just for a point of clarification for the public's listening, the contract or that patio permit is on a 30-day safety review. So city personnel safety review will be done by the city, police, fire department, and the plaza and the city personnel during that time, and they'll make those decisions on that. If it stays, it goes, or for how long it stays, or whatever. But it's part of the application process, so it's nothing permanent. It is reviewable in 30 days. Now, I don't know when the 30 days come about, but the city manager is aware of it, and I'm sure he'll take care of it. On my report, I gave a directive last Wednesday on annexation, the north part of the city up in the Zamora Arena area and the Pacos Paul area across Medite. That was annexed into the city limits in 2015. Alfonso Ortiz was the mayor at the time, and I needed to see if it had been registered as of today with the courthouse, or what's the update on that?
So that will be annexed and registered in the courthouse by the end of the week.
By the end of the week?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and because we need to move forward on selection of that committee.
Right.
Okay, thank you. And then the other thing is, Mr. City Manager, did you respond to the RTD bus?
I have not.
No?
I have not.
This is something that we supported last year with $5,000, $10,000 coming from Highlands, and $10,000 from Luna, and $30,000 from Mora for that bus that comes in from Chacon up in the hill with 10 stops. They're in dire need of meeting a deadline, and I believe it's to the direction of the city manager to sign that and approve that, $5,000, but I appreciate it if everybody would give him your input so he can move forward on it. The other thing I'd like to report is that during our police walk, the chief was there with me, and residents complained about street lights on Legion from Grand Avenue to Calle El Dorado. None of them are working. They're all off. So it's around that curve where the pavement is pretty wafery. I think that it's a safety issue, and I think that we just put in $20,000 in our budget to repair street lights, and I think they gotta be looked at and repaired. There's 2 of them that are down, but there's 7 that are up, but they're not lit up. And then the last item I had, Mr. Mayor, was in council, was on the Friday frescoes. We supported that for 28 frescoes Fridays, and I think I believe they only had 17, and they canceled the rest of them due to the construction. So I was wondering if that money is gonna be redirected to our city funds and then reallocate it next year, if so.
Yes, sir. So they was actually canceled due to COVID regulations for mass gatherings,
Okay.
and we can always redirect those monies to wherever we need to for next year's fresco events.
Okay, just so that they won't be misused for something else. So we can redirect them that way next year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Thank you. I don't usually respond to councilors' reports, but for Elaine's sake, there is a discussion about using or going back to Zoom for people who are viewing the meetings, particularly for a lot of people who are on the committees are concerned about exposure until things settle down. So we'll have that discussion later. There are people at home who are watching, and we always invite our viewers on YouTube to join us during our meetings so that they'll be informed about what we're discussing. And I have one particular friend whose name is Joey Montoya, who always listens to and views our city council meetings. And it reminded me today of how important that YouTube connection is for our citizens. So we invite everybody to, if they can't make it here, to tune into YouTube. And thank you for watching and listening in. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, next we have Police Chief's report. We have our Police Chief Antonio Salazar.
Mr. Salazar?
Good afternoon.
You might want to move that mic closer to you. Thank you.
So here I have the monthly report for August. It's a lengthy one. So in our field operations, which is the patrol division, from August 1st through August 31st, training and education has continued. There had been 1,669 calls for service, 193 citations given, and 13 of those citations are non-traffic citations. 24 arrests have been made, 4 parking citations issued, and 4 animal control calls for service. From the records division, the information records division, 104 offense reports have been entered. 27 traffic accident reports have been entered. 214 citations were entered. 183 customers were attended to. 294 incident reports and traffic accident reports have been scanned. And as far as HIPAAs have been completed, there have been 14 HIPAAs completed, HIPAA requests. We are continuing to work on the destruction order for 2004 through 2017 citations, and started working on the destruction orders for 2005 through 2016 incident reports and miscellaneous documents. The grants updates. So completed HIPAA requests, entered citations, and then also conducted internal audits. She had recently attended the New Mexico Gang Task Force meeting, attended part 2 of the law enforcement coordinators symposium for TBS grants. Attended the Region 4 and DPS yearly audit. We've sat down with the grants coordinator, and we've discussed the avenues, and we want to work on different ideas for our grants. Approved advanced training through the LEPF fund. And as far as the street crimes division and / narcotics evidence sections, street crimes unit. So as you're aware, the 1 week is street crimes, dedicated to street crimes. They have an altered schedule from 10 to 8:30, and they have also an investigation week that it's from 8 to 5. They do follow-ups and from their street crimes cases. So for the street crimes unit, 10 cases have been assigned, 4 self-initiated cases, 1 arrest, 3 search warrants, 1 stolen vehicle recovered, and 1 missing person. And evidence seized through our investigations and patrol officers. And this also includes with the street crimes unit and investigations. 8 grams of methamphetamine, 1 gram of cocaine, 14 fentanyl pills, 2 firearms, 48 evidence cases, 96 evidence turned in, 1 property had been released, 102 cases at New Mexico DPS lab, 3 cases at RCFL, which that's for the phones for evidence. They gather all evidence pertaining to the case onto a file, and they return it back to us along with the phone. 1 firearm has been seized from patrol, 2 grams of methamphetamine from patrol, 1 strip of Suboxone from patrol, and 1 HIPAA request with including DVR and CDs. And also, I know we've been talking about Walk the Block with the council. We want to continue that. I know the last time we did it, it was it's a test run. So now that we kind of have a little bit of the kinks worked out, we want to continue that, and hopefully we can set aside a couple of days, and we could actually do more promotion on that, so we can get more involvement with the people around the block that we're walking. And well, we also have 6 officers currently in backgrounds for new hires. Anyone has any questions?
Not so much a question as much as a concern. I hate to do this in a public session, but I'd like to direct the city manager to direct the city, the chief and the police officers to control speed and noise. We just passed an ordinance. There's no reason for people speeding as much as they do. I'm a lead foot myself, and if you give me a ticket, I'll pay it and go to court and do everything that I have to do. But it is unnecessary. A lot of people have complained about speeding throughout Las Vegas. We definitely, we definitely need to do a no tolerance for speeding. and I mean pulling people over for everything, for every bit of speeding. The noise is ridiculous. I don't know, I'm researching now. Other communities are looking for, you know how you have to test your car for emissions?
Yes.
There's now communities that are having cars tested for noise. And you have to have a sticker on your license or on your car, and you have to pay a fee to get that, your car tested. And so I'm really looking at the possibility of doing that. You know, there's one son of a gun, and I'm gonna stay up one of these nights, and I'm gonna catch him. And the muffler is extremely loud. It bothers me, it bothers my animals. It's just, and it never fails. It's at 12:30, 1 o'clock at night, and it seems like, he knows where I live, or I don't know if he does that on every block, but wakes me up almost every single night, and I think I know who it is. But we passed a noise ordinance, so whatever it takes for the city, for the police officers to be equipped with decibel readers, and for speeding, we definitely need to put a plan together to stop the speeding and the noise in the community.
So I will say, I do understand, so that will be more an emphasis on patrol. There is a loud exhaust ordinance and a state statute, and that also, with that state statute and ordinance, that includes smoke. So with these diesels or well, I guess mainly diesels, how they emit a lot of exhaust smoke, that is a citation and that is a violation along with the loud exhaust. As far as decibel readers, we don't have that. That traffic stop is just solely based off of officer discretion.
I get one on my app, and it dings every night that car goes by. And my cats jump out of their skin and have trouble resting the rest of the night. It's very scary, and it's very, very, very upsetting. And so I think my blood pressure goes up like 72 points every time that guy passes in front of my house, because I get so angry. But it's not about me. It's about the people who have called me saying, you know, I had a guest stay at a hotel from out of town that said, this is the noisiest town I have ever visited. And so it's gotten to a point, if, you know, you could download an app to read decibels on your phone, but we can go ahead and splurge for the $4.95 decibel reader for each of the officers to have. We could definitely make those available for your police officers if that's going to help. And yes, you have to hear them, you have to see them, and you have to be there. But having the equipment might deter some of that stuff. And I'd really appreciate anything you can do about speeding.
Yes.
And you're doing a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Montoya.
Yeah, I just had a question. Now that we're going to be enacting an ordinance or resolutions for cannabis and establishments and sales and so forth, how are you preparing your officers, or is there going to be state training with the new laws coming in place, or how's that going to transparent with your officers in the near future?
There is training. A lot of that is through all of us as well. So it's a lot of it is also reaching out to other agencies who have that implemented already. And there's like Colorado, you know, different states like that. So but there is trainings, and I'll be honest with you, we definitely need the training on that, on how we're going to control that, not necessarily combat that, but control the cannabis and the illegal grows and stuff like that. Because, I mean, they're still regulated to a certain amount of grows and a certain amount of sales, or what they can have in their homes. And so we still need to get all up to date on that, for sure.
You'll be attending the police chief's training?
Yes.
For the municipal league? I'm sure there'll be information that you can get from other communities, but if you need training, let us know and we can definitely help.
And the other question that I had was, on this report, you have 1,669 calls for this month of service, but I know that when people call you, they don't really tell you what it all entails. And on this report, I don't see anything about burglaries. So I was wondering if somehow the system or the officers can define to the dispatchers when it's a burglary case so that you can get the statistics on here separately.
Yes, so we do have the capability, and now that you bring that up, I will make sure to, I guess, specify each call and not just, you know,
You know what? That would be voluminous and a ton of paper. But he's asking particularly for burglaries. I don't want to go.
Just for
through-
burglary.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, to add that separately. That way we know exactly what's going on in town now.
Right.
Because a lot of people claim they've reported some burglaries and nothing's being done. So, it'd be nice to see a number on here, whether we had 1, 5, or 10 per month. And that way, we can alarm our residents as to what's going on, or what areas they're heating, or whatever might be the case. Because right now, it's kind of like hidden away somewhere in those numbers.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next order of business, please. Thank you, Mr. Salazar.
Thank you.
Mr.
I
Romero?
had a question. Chief, just a real quick question as far as, and I don't know if we could discuss this here, or at least just get a preliminary, I don't know who this would go to. We're in arbitration with the union.
Yes.
Or- Okay, I don't know if we could answer this. Are we taking the steps necessary to move forward, or are we waiting, or what's going on that? Or I don't know if you're probably not in.
Union negotiations would be appropriate in executive session. We can't discuss ongoing union negotiations in an open session. That would be an executive session, but to answer your question, we are moving forward.
So salaries in general, we can't.
We can't do anything with, it's an impasse, it's going in, so there's nothing we can do right now until that gets resolved.
And then, going back to the question that Councilor Montoya had asked, and I know there was I know in past reports, there was a report, no burglaries, but then the next, the outfit comes out Friday, and then there was a reported burglary. So how are we checking that those are verified, or how? Or how, I guess this is going to be hard for you to answer. So we got the report with no burglaries, but could this burglary have not been reported? I don't understand how that one came up.
I guess, I mean, I know kind of from the past, I understand where that's coming from. There could have been, calls just, or, burglaries and certain crimes not being reported, not being called in. And then it just, it passed on through the neighbors or through the community, and then it gets to the paper or wherever else. And then all of a sudden, over the weekend, there's 4 burglaries, but those burglaries just probably weren't reported. That could be one way that, that could have happened. That our records don't show any burglaries, but then, whenever this hits social media on Monday morning, there's 5 burglaries.
Yeah, and I know the social media was separate, but okay. My next, I guess, comment, I guess this goes back, and I guess accountability is, I know we come up here, and in the past we give many directions to police chiefs, but I think as a council, I think we need to set goals. I mean, at the end of the day, the reality is there's so many officers, and if we give assignments to, controlled speeding, well, we're gonna have other issues, different issues, and I think we're gonna have to set those goals and prioritize, what we need. I mean, the biggest and important part, in my opinion, is the recruitment of officers, maintaining our officers, the morale, keep that intact because, you know, we continue to lose and, you know, that's gonna be a big issue. So I think we need to, you know, focus our point instead of giving all these directions, you know, see what we want as a council and address that and put goals. That way, at the end of the day, you know, if it comes down to it, say, Chief, you didn't meet these goals, and I think we need to, you know, go towards that, that type of accountability from, you know, direction from mayor and council instead. I mean, it's tough, you know, in those positions, it's tough, but at the end of the day, we need to, you know, understand that there's only so many officers. I know there's different, you know, patrols that you could probably do, and I don't know where we are with grants, and I don't know, maybe we can get a report, you know, on that, I can't remember the name of the grants, but, you know, certain grants that I know, you know, are specifically towards, you know, speeding. So, I don't know, maybe you can get us an update on those?
Yes.
And then I also want to, I know you didn't mention it, but can you mention about the program with the schools? The tickets in the morning with...
Oh, yes, so we, for the football game, this last football game, we met with Mr. Tripp, and he gave us, it was 40 tickets, he gave us 40 tickets, and it was for kids, you know, one free pass for the ticket for the kids, and we, let's see, it was me, Deputy Chief Marquez, and Commander Rael met in front of Tony Cerna, and we passed out, along with a few football players, and we passed out tickets to the kids that were, you know, crossing traffic, and we were out there also as traffic enforcement for, you know, slowing down traffic throughout there. But yeah, we handed out 40 tickets to kids, and that was kind of a collaboration with Mr. Tripp and the department.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next order of business, Mayor Pro Tem, is our finance report. We have Jesus Paqueta, our finance director.
Council, this finance report is for the month ending August 31st. General fund has revenues at 16%, expenditures at 14%, and we show a deficit of $13,064. The enterprise fund has revenues at 14%, expenditures at 10%, and we got a surplus of $438,110. Lodgers tax shows revenues at 27%, expenditures at 12%, and a surplus of $67,301. The rec department has revenues at 9%, expenditures at 5%, and a surplus of $47,725. On a side note, Councilmember Romero requested information as far as the new court fees. There was, as of June 8th, when we started collecting this new fee, we collected $9,047. $6,785 is earmarked for the police department, and little over $2,200 is earmarked for a new municipal building for the courts.
Are you done?
Yes, sir.
I just had a question on that report, Mr. Mayor. Jesus?
Yes, sir.
So as these funds are going in, are we putting them in a line item for municipal court and to public safety, or how are we?
Right now, they're still earmarked with the court fees. We're not breaking them out to police or to the municipal buildings because nobody responded to an email that we sent out as to how are we going to spend this money. If we put it in the police fund, do they go and have carte blanche and spend whatever they want on it? Or do they have to come to council, ask for permission to spend it that way? We need those questions answered before we can separate these monies out.
So with that, Mayor, the reason why I kind of asked for this information, again, is going back to, we could sit here and try to say, we're not doing enough, but at the end of the day, a suggestion, and again, this is just, something that I know, we sat, myself, Mr. Aaron, it was during a break, and Leo with the Municipal League, and we sat with the police chief from Portales, am I right, Mr. Aaron? Portales? Deputy Chief?
I don't remember.
And, he was just saying, on their retention bonus, different things, but, one of the things was, not retention, bonus, sign-on bonus. And, I know, in any agency, they do, let's say it's 2,000, but it's 500 after the first 3 months, and then they kind of break it up. And I just, this might be a way, where we come up with a creative idea, and of course, it's going to be up to council, or depending how we decide to use this money. That money's going to, I know it really hasn't done too much, but again, COVID, and in talking with the judge, there's still, maybe some of these tickets haven't gone through because of like back through mail again. So it's not as it's not coming in as fast as it would if it was in person. But I guess it just bring awareness as to there's going to be some money there, and we need to come up with some creative ideas. To me, I think sign-on bonuses is a start. I know we can't compete with, I think Santa Fe was $7,000 sign-on bonus. I know we can't afford that, but it's something to start with. And going into, I know, now we're also going to have the issue with fire. If we could, somehow include, in our business license fees, some type of fee where we could do the same thing for fire. Just come in with creative ways, because, fire and police, these are very important positions within our community that we need to make sure that, it was just amazing, what some of these communities are paying as bonuses, and the marketing plans that they're putting to, attract these guys. And we need to start somewhere, and I just wanted to see where we're at so far with this, and just kind of start, maybe we could start the discussions and go from there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor. Councilman Romero, on one of the items that we have tonight on resolution number 2138 for fire, we do have a $75 fee for the cannabis license that will go into the fire department fund number 750. So, and we'll get to that when that time comes. But and then they also get another line item when with the rental of that tower that's at the probably Dukes Fire Station. That goes into the fire department also. And then we also get another fund for the fire department for the, I think it's $2,000 a year for the use of the old City Hall building. So there's different avenues that the fire department is also getting that kind of funding. But I want to thank you, because without you pushing this, we wouldn't be having this monies available. Thank you for that. Mr. Vaqueros, so on the gross receipt tax of January 2011, we have a balance of $202,000, $547. That's on our general fund, item number 6.
$192,732 or $202,547.
Yeah, so that one should be paid off when, like in a year's time, at that rate?
I'd have to research it and let you know.
And then the one above that, the 1/8%.
1/8?
The 1/8% also, that one should be paying off pretty soon. On the 1/8 infrastructure right there.
I will find out for you.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking is because we have an election coming up, and if these are paid off, maybe we can do a joint project with that amount of gross receipt tax also.
Okay.
for instance, if we want to do for the Rodriguez or City Hall or whatever it might be. The other question that I had is on your fiscal year budget of 2022, on your operational budgets there, you have all the departments listed, and we're at 13,064 on the minus already, and we just started the fiscal year. How does that work?
We haven't done the accruals for this year. We're gonna take, I think it was $70,000 out of this year's expenditures and accrue them back to last year.
Okay, and when's that gonna happen?
By the end of the month, for sure.
All right. Yeah, because, yeah, we can't go into deficit like that for too long. It's not good when we get audited. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor. Okay, so it's on the lodger's tax, what's been kind of our average monthly revenue?
Half of that would be 80, about 80,000.
And do you know of what, currently that we have right now, how much of that, because we have, what, a two-year spend that? 2-year timeline? Am I correct in that, 2 years? Or 1 year to spend, because as that money comes in, you have 2 years to spend.
To spend it?
2 years, yeah. Do you know where we're at with that?
Again, I'd have to research it and find out for you. 2 years?
It's 2 years or a year.
Okay.
And the reason why I ask, I mean, yesterday I was in a business community committee meeting. We had Ms. Sarah Jo, we had Nancy and Jane, and they were, kind of caught my attention that, they were saying that they hadn't seen a lot of the spending happening with some of these marketing and that, but we've appropriated some of these marketing dollars, and I'm just kind of curious, is it not happening yet? And, it's all, online, that's kind of what they were, it kind of took me by surprise. I was just wondering where we're at. We gotta make sure that if we've appropriated, that they jump on it to spend some of that.
To spend it?
But if you can follow up on that and then get us a report.
Will do.
Thank you.
Any hot spots, Mr. Vaquera, that you need to inform us of?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Good.
Appreciate you being here. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, moving on to our business items. Business item number 1, request approval to publish ordinance 21-17, amendment to the fire code to include the new standards pertaining specifically to fire and life safety for cannabis and hemp industries. We have our Deputy Fire Chief, Stephen Spen.
Welcome, Mr. Span.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Council, I'm here to ask for approval to go ahead and publish, our ordinance 2017 that adopts the Chapter 39 from IFC 2021 and NFPA 1, Chapter 38, which are specific to cannabis industries, growing, extraction, and sales. The only changes to the ordinance this will give us is it will give us the ability to actually regulate the safety measures that are needed, such as ozone generators, suppression systems, suppression hoods, those items. We've actually been working on this for over 1.5 to 2 years with the Denver Fire Department, as they're seen as golden standard for the country at this point. Giving us a lot of guidance. As Councilor Montoya says, there's a $75 fee. That goes into the 764 Fire Prevention Grant, line item. That money is used for buying equipment for inspections, investigations post-fires, and also for the smaller items, like for the children, we buy them the coloring books, the little helmets, to educate them and the public. But I'm sure, hopefully get permission to get this going.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Are any of does this require any kind of certification? And if so, are any of your fire people certified to do such inspections?
I am certified to do these inspections by adopting the fire code. It gives us the full guidance. We've also been attending webinars through NFPA and IFC for the last year.
And is there a certification that comes along with with the?
Not at this time. They're still attempting to get this going. The country's trying to catch up with Colorado. NFPA themselves is actually releasing a full code next year just for cannabis, which is going to be, surprisingly enough, NFPA 420.
Okay.
But once that's done,
420.
NFPA, yes, sir. So
All
once
right.
that's done, they should come out with their certifications for that.
Thank you. Further discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Romero.
Mr. Span, as far as that $75 permit fee, permit cost, is that under or over average cost of that?
For the most part, most of our fees, the fire department charges are under. If you look at Colorado, they're actually charging some pretty good fees, but of course, they've got money back at other agencies as well, such as Albuquerque Fire Department. Their fees for inspections, they charge by square footage, where we charge $25 a year. They can go anywhere. For a place like Walmart would cost $300 a year. We're just trying to do enough to help supplement the reporting system we use and the equipment we need, and not break the bank.
But this one's more specific just to cannabis, right? The $75?
Yes, sir,
That's
just for
the
cannabis.
But so this cannabis one, we're probably under, and the reason why I bring this up is we know that the cannabis industry is going to have a lot of money. So I just, I mean, we don't want to, I mean, of course, we want them to, you know, to operate here, but we know, you know, it's just like, and this, I guess, kind of going off topic, but we have these hail, mobile hail, you know, companies that come in. We have all these companies that come in for $35, and they take, and I can vouch for this because I've seen it personally, $20,000 from this community in about 2 months.
2 days.
You know, so, you know, same thing with roofing companies. You know, we have these companies that come in, take advantage, leave, and, you know, no accountability. So in this one, you know, they're going to make money, and I'm just asking, I mean, could we go higher without kind of not, I guess?
We could go higher. Honestly, from what I've seen so far, we're actually ahead of the state fire marshal's office as far as this goes. They have not adopted 2021 to pertain to this. Currently, if I couldn't give you an actual guideline what we charge in the state of New Mexico that would be equivalent to other cities right now. I can research it and get back to you. But this is basically just get the ordinance in place before we reach the governor's.
And with that, Steve, I just want to thank you, you know, I know, you know, after going to this hemp, well, not the hemp, the cannabis training that we went, and I know that Scott and I had, you know, had discussions about, you know, including fire and that whole thing, and you were already kind of on it when I reached out to you and then asked you. So, I mean, that was you know, surprising, you know, but you know, you were doing your job and getting things done. You know, thanks for being on top of it, and I know you did call and reach out to me, and I brought up like it was under my understanding that we already had one of these businesses, but then you called and you verified that, you know, when you heard it, you were already on top of it, and you heard about it, and you made sure that wasn't. So it's, I know sometimes the fire department is, as they say, sometimes out of sight, out of mind, but you guys are taking care of business, and you know, we got Chief Billy, but we have, you know, both of you guys there that are getting things done, so thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
But with that, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that we consider increasing that. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, we need to find additional resources and revenues, and I believe that cannabis is going to be an industry that I think they can afford a $75 fee.
How about 300? I mean, what do we publish?
And I guess I'll ask this question. I know we have Ms. Amanda Salas from the county, and I know she's been working with Scott, and I think that's why she's here. Am I correct? Or so are you guys also doing this fire, or?
We currently do not have a fire marshal in the county, so we're working with state fire on that. As of right now, they don't have any fees involved, but that may change. So it's just kind of a work in progress.
And I know one of the things that we're trying to do, you know, you guys, Scott, and yourself, is trying to make sure that our fees are comparable. We don't have one that's, you know, way up here and one down here.
Yeah,
So I guess, and I know, I don't know if I could ask you this, if we were to increase it, is that something that the county would, I mean, we don't want to change it, and you guys, you know, someone then throws us off. Is that something that you would?
I can definitely talk to our fire chief and see if that's something that he would be willing to look at.
So would we have to, I guess, my question, Sandra, in order to publish it, would we have to have a price on it, or could we approve this pending the discussions?
We could approve the publication of it, and then it's going to come for public hearing in October.
So
And
so we
at
don't have
that
to have a
point-
number yet tonight?
This number here is a placeholder. You'll have the opportunity to change it before you ratify it into an ordinance.
I don't know.
This isn't your last chance to change it.
Thank you. I don't know if it make a difference for the publishing, but in the fire code itself that y'all adopted last year, it states the fire marshal will recommend and set fines, fees, and penalties and bring them before the council. So I don't know if that allows us to change it at a later date a little bit easier,
I
or
guess
how
at
that works.
the next meeting, you could recommend to change the price.
I can deal with, I'll go with council's recommendation, and I'll also bring back information on what everybody else in the state is charging at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya.
So, Mr. Attorney, this number couldn't be changed tonight?
You can change it tonight, or you can change it when it comes back in front of you again.
Okay, yeah, because up at the municipal league conference, they advised us that we were in charge of all fees or penalties or anything that came about under our jurisdiction. So we can set the fees. The same thing, we're setting them on the next ordinance that's coming before us. I recommend that we uplift it right now, and then if we have to look at it again later on down the road, well, then we look at it and bring it back again. And just,
What's the price you'd like?
I won't mind doubling it,
150?
150.
150? Is that fair?
Yes, sir. I'll make those changes tomorrow morning.
Is that acceptable, Cassandra? All right.
Yes, Mr.
What's the
Mayor.
pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero.
I make a motion to publish ordinance number 21-17.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero to adopt 2117. I'll accept a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
For the 150.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
in that
we-
motion is the change to
Yes,
increase it
150.
to 150?
Yes, sorry about that. Yes.
And the second agrees?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
Councilor Uvadi Jr.?
Yes.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you, Mr. Span. I appreciate your work. Second order of business, please.
Request approval of resolution number 21-38, legalizing and implementing regulation of recreational personal cannabis use, recreational and medical cannabis production, and hemp production. We have our city attorney, Scott Aaron.
Thank you. Welcome, Scott.
And council, before I get started, Amanda, would you please join me up here? Amanda got a quicker jump on all of this cannabis ordinance and resolution stuff than I did, actually. And she's been very helpful to the city. For those of you who may not know who are coming in via YouTube or something, Amanda works with P&Z at the county level, and she was ahead of this and did a lot of research and was very helpful. And we're working together to try to make sure that the city and the county are in some type of agreement and lockstep as we move forward. This has kind of been a bit of a hot mess. And I've been, as you guys, the council know, when we went to the municipal league hearing, we got a lot of information regarding cannabis-related stuff, and so I've tried to put that into here. I also included, as you'll see, the public input. Miss Caffrey that gave the public input, she's actually legal counsel for one of the big retail outlets. And so I thought she made a great suggestion, and so I've included it in there. So what's before you tonight is something that is a resolution, and it's kind of a stopgap measure until we can get a permanent ordinance in place. And it probably just won't be one ordinance. I've been working on this cannabis-related stuff for a couple weeks, and I've just been, I'm still finding areas of our code that are going to have to be updated, because this is just going to be a very intrusive, widespread net that's going to affect so many areas, from our zoning to water usage issues. We're just going to have, it's going to touch a lot of areas of our ordinances, so we're going to have to try to do a kind of a broad net and capture those areas that need to be updated. And even once we do our updates, we are going to have to play this thing out for a couple years and see where the bugs are. We're going to have to keep working on it. It's not going to be a one-and-done type of a thing. So pardon the long, lengthy introduction, but I just wanted to kind of give everybody out there in the public an idea of how broad this is going to be. So anyway, what's before you is version of this resolution. I suspect some of this will make its way into the ordinance. There are some changes in definitions that have taken place because the Cannabis Regulation Act has very specific definitions, and we really need to try to adhere to those so that we're not having differences between what our ordinances say and what the state statutes say. As well as there were some water issues that we wanted to make sure that we at least give some knowledge to up front so that the Utilities Department can be thinking about and working on how they're going to respond water-wise to some of these things. As I said, they're all works in progress. There was an insertion in one of the whereas clauses on the second page where it talks about code enforcement, San Miguel County sheriffs, city policemen being able to enforce the provisions of the resolution. I also think we need to add in there city fire marshal, because as you just heard from Fire Marshal Span, the fire department's going to be intricately involved in different parts of this, and it's going to be really important. One of the issues that I foresee we're going to have, or may have, some of our older homes here have infrastructure issues, electrical infrastructure that's not up to speed, not up to code for sure. Maybe some water plumbing issues. There may be other things that are not up to code and up to speed. If somebody just decides they're going to fill up their basement with a bunch of high-powered metal halide lamps or high-pressure sodium lamps, they're going to blow some fuse boxes and things could get ugly. So we want to try to get on the front end of that and at a minimum warn our public, you know, before they just start plugging in fans and ventilators and lights and who knows what. We don't need any fires, we don't need any issues like that. So I've tried to make most of that out here tonight. As you can see, I'm certainly open for questions, but the other thing that I think we need to realize is that this is going to affect zoning pretty heavily. The council's going to have to make some hard decisions where the council wants to allow the commercial part of this. Okay, people for personal use probably going to be in their house or whatever, but the commercial side is going to be big. Where are we going to allow this for zoning? Light industrial, the heavy industrial, the regular commercial districts. How close to residential areas do we want this? What about mixed-use residential? Those are decisions we're going to have to look at and need you guys to kind of start thinking about that. We could probably have some input from maybe community development, P&Z, or Masalas in terms of what the county's doing, but this is going to affect a lot of different parts of our city ordinances. So if you guys will kind of keep that in mind, I don't mean to be overly broad with the resolution or with the ordinance that will come forward, but it just touches so many areas that I would really appreciate you guys to read through it. And if you have ideas, talk to me, let's incorporate them, let's talk with Masalas, and let's try to get a team approach so we can get off on the right foot.
I have a couple of questions.
Dr. Rodriguez?
Taking that same sentence, are you going to include Highlands Police or Security also in there?
Well, Highlands, my understanding is that Highlands law enforcement is primarily responsible for Highlands. Outside of Highlands, I don't, other than maybe emergency purposes, and I'm not speaking from experience, but can get Chief to chime in. Highlands isn't responsible for law enforcement probably outside of the Highlands footprint, except for maybe grave circumstances, like an officer's being shot or something. So I don't know that we will include them in our resolution because we don't want to bind them to have to respond to issues in the city. Does that make sense?
Yes. The other concern I have, because you sent us videos to watch, and I watched them, and I think I sent you an email back saying I didn't realize how extensive this process is and how dangerous it is. And I really want to reiterate what you were saying in regards to residential areas, because I can see people who have a basement to try to be able to grow within their basement, and the fire hazard that that would cause, not just to their home, but to their neighborhood. But, so I guess my question to you is, what are other cities doing in that regard? Is it just becoming more public information, letting the residents know how difficult this whole process is, and kind of a safety warning? I mean, what are other
That's
cities
part of
doing in that
it.
regard?
Some municipalities are doing that. A lot of municipalities that I looked at their ordinances in Colorado have actually gone further. They have charged some type of a real basic inspection for safety code purposes of people who want to grow for personal use. Just a simple walkthrough, and it's not, the inspection is not for any type of intrusive, see if anybody's breaking the law. Matter of fact, I don't think there would be anything that would come of an inspection that would move forward into a criminal complaint, but it's for exactly the purpose you're talking about. They've also, all these other municipalities in Colorado have also required that any type of cultivation or personal use activities have to occur within a residential structure. They can't be out in the front yard, they can't be in the backyard, they can't be in the alley, they can't be in a common space. They have to be inside of an enclosed area that can be secured, so that people who are under 21 and people who aren't allowed to have access to cannabis because they're on probation or parole or something, so that there's safeguards set up. So Colorado is actually, like DC said, is kind of the gold standard, and some of these municipalities have kind of strengthened their law so that it's not just some out in the open type thing. I would just have to defer to their experience. I mean, we haven't experienced this, so I don't know what to expect, but just by looking at what the other cities and municipalities and counties have done, they've tried to make it enclosed, an enclosed area where people can't see it when they drive by. They don't know if you're growing or not, and that does things to deter crime and to deter certain other elements that we don't want. So, in short, that's what Colorado municipalities are doing. I'd suggest that we take a look at that, and I've incorporated some of that into this, just to make sure that we're trying to follow what some of the other municipalities are doing.
My last question is, I thought the fee structure was low, so did you compare these fees to municipalities in other?
No, most of them were compared to the county. I don't know, I don't have the counties right in front of me to compare. I think in some areas we're a little higher. I don't know if we're any lower than the county in any particular areas, but I think we may be a little higher than the county in a few areas, specifically probably the retail area. I don't have a crystal ball, can't see what's going to happen in the future, but I anticipate we're not going to have a lot of commercial grower interest within the city. Most growers like to be out where people don't know where they're at, so that it eliminates a lot of security risks. I think most of our in-town stuff will be retail. We might have some other some people doing some manufacturing type things where they're doing extraction or something, where they're preparing cannabis products, not necessarily cannabis, but extracting THC and trying to put it into edibles or creams or lotions, something like that. But short of that, I don't anticipate we're going to have people trying to grow in large facilities inside the city, partially because they're going to run into some water issues, zoning issues, so.
Also, do they regulate the percentage of THC?
This will regulate it.
Is that regulated, like what percent of THC can be placed in, for example, certain edibles?
That would be all at the state level. We're not.
That's all at the state level.
We're not given the power. We're given the power to regulate in, I believe it's 3 very narrow areas. Do you remember what those are off the top of your head?
Primarily zoning. We
Okay.
can't limit them from operating, but just we can zone in the locations that they can. We talked about the 300 feet at the minimum.
300 feet
Minimum with a school or daycare as well. So we do have some limits, but we don't have a lot to work with.
Okay. We could do place or location, we could do density, and I think we could do hours of operation, which I've incorporated into this. It's a 300-foot, it's 300-foot maximum distance from schools and daycares. That doesn't include churches or religious facilities at all. It doesn't include drug testing or drug treatment facilities, which I think is a problem, but the state doesn't allow us to change that. So it's 300 feet from daycares and schools. My understanding is that there's no definition in state law of what a school or a daycare is, so we get to define that at the local level. So we're going to have to look at that.
Even if it's connected to a church?
If a daycare or school is connected to a church, then they're going to have to be 300 feet from that church.
Okay.
So we've got some things in there we need to look at, we need to figure out. But I appreciate you guys looking at this, and the other thing we got to look at is density. I mean, we don't want the plaza to be lined, or Bridge Street to be lined with 12 of these retail outlets. So,
Right.
you know, they got to have some space, just good for competition. You can't just have 12 of them down Bridge Street. So we're going to try to look at that and figure out what we need to do.
If I could add to that, I guess I'll disagree on that one, because I've been to Trinidad area, and, I mean, you go, and there's one here, one, I mean, right next to each other, and,
Right.
I mean, the one good thing that I can say that it's done is it's revitalized the downtown area in Trinidad, and me personally, I see that happening. We have some buildings that, you know, I think it's not only our vision, Main Street's vision, everybody's vision to fill up those buildings. You fill up those, and some of those, I mean, of course, they have their, you know, their security, everything in those buildings, but, I mean, some of those, the way they've redone them, it's amazing, and it's, I mean, me personally, I would like to see that. I wouldn't want to, you know, make it where they're spaced apart, but that's, you know, just my opinion. One concern, or, I don't know, Madam.
No, I'm good.
One thing that I had on the last whereas, Scott, and I know you updated here.
Yeah.
You gave us this updated one, and you took off the moratorium, because that was kind of a concern, and then we couldn't put a moratorium. But couldn't we change the language to where it's, you know, in the meantime, till we get the ordinance in place, is use a conditional use permit, so that way we can...
The ordinance that we have will be a permitted process that goes through planning and zoning. That will definitely be the case. This was specifically for the issuance of a city business license or registration. I don't remember what the language says in the code, but before we're going to issue something saying, yes, you're a local business that's recognized by the city, we really need to have an ordinance in place, and we can't use language that says we just have a moratorium until we get an ordinance. If we don't get an ordinance until next May, that's not going to work. Our ordinance isn't going to stand up in court. We're going to get sued. And part of the concern that was expressed at the municipal league conference was that some of these entities come in well-funded and well-lawyered, and if we're not being sensitive to what the state law says, if we're just holding people up unnecessarily, we're inviting lawsuits.
But with the conditional use, you are allowing them, but at the same time, you kind of, I mean, we all know what a conditional use takes some processes in place in order to get things done, but, so it would kind of give us a little more time to get that ordinance. And I know there was a deadline here that you had January 1st, 2022. Could we bring that, I mean, how long is it going to take to work together with the county to make sure that ordinances are...
My goal is to have you guys an ordinance to start considering in October. I've been working on it I've been working on this cannabis stuff for the last so long, I've got the munchies. I mean, so I will have you something in October to take a look at, and you guys can consider it at that point. But we have been, I can't speak for Amanda, but I have been up to my neck in cannabis stuff for the last few months. I will have you something in October to look at. It will be like this, it will be a draft. And I'm sure there'll be some corrections here and there, we'll have to tweak it. But I want to get you something so you can start considering it. We need to move quickly.
So, and I guess this question, if there's nobody here to answer it, 'cause I'm sure we've had calls. What are we doing in the interim right now? How are we handling those?
We're not issuing any business licenses or registrations regarding cannabis stuff right now. They actually don't need it to apply at the state level. The state website had a qualifying question, that please enter your local business registration information. We were told at the Municipal League Conference by the director that that's no longer going to be required to go through the application process with the state. So we're going to let the state fix it on their end, and we're going to work on getting our ordinances in place.
Mr. Mayor.
Are you done, Mr. Romero?
Yeah, I was just
Okay.
thinking how,
Scott, so then this resolution is not ready to go then? It still needs to be,
This is just a resolution, this is not an ordinance.
huh?
This is just a resolution, it's to buy us some time before we can get an ordinance in place. Because an ordinance, of course, we got to publish, all that stuff, that takes much longer to put into effect. I was just trying to get in a resolution so we have something that matches what the county's doing, matching what other municipalities are doing.
So then you're asking for the changes or input right now, so we can change them and pass this?
Correct, if you've got changes, look
Because,
here.
on the resolution itself, on page 1, on the last paragraph, on the last whereas, I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but I feel like there shouldn't be any Sunday sales. And then,
Why?
I just don't think that, I think that Sundays are really more reserved. I know liquor sales at one time were not done on Sundays, and then they moved them to all day, and then they moved them to lunch. And just the same thing with liquor establishments. They had them at midnight, at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, different times like that. But I think, I respect families, and I respect our Lord. And I think that, there ought to be the seventh day. And I think that we ought to have a restful day. Seventh day.
I think that would bring on a lawsuit,
Yeah.
because we're trying to regulate the days, and I don't think we can.
Right, Councilman Montoya. So as far as what other municipalities are doing is they are following what liquor sales are like. So they're following the same standard hours. So that's ultimately where Mr. Aaron had incorporated that time schedule.
But because it's everywhere else, don't mean it has to be in our community. They told us, we set the hours, we set the days, and we set the locations, and we said how many. That's what we were told. That's why they're kicking it down the can down the buck to the end of it, to the communities and the little towns and so forth, so that they can set up their own regulations.
Yeah, the one principle that we're going to have to keep in mind is that if it's very explicit, if we're explicitly treating cannabis businesses different than all other businesses, it's going to be a lawsuit. So we have to be careful that we're treating them similarly as we do liquor establishments or other types of businesses, because if we're just being very, very heavy-handedly regulatory on cannabis and not on the others, we're gonna get in trouble.
Well, I think every business is separately, but either way, also on page number 3, where the first whereas is about the 300 feet, to me, I think that's only a football field's length. And I think that ought to be 500 feet.
We're only allowed to do up to 300. We can't do more than 300 by state law.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's per state statute of House Bill 2.
So on the same vein, we can't include with the daycares and so forth, homeless shelters, fire and police stations, or liquor establishments, no?
Nope.
Other entities have administered that, so Bernalillo, the city of Bernalillo has done that up to 600 feet. They're still wondering if they're gonna have legal issues regarding that, so they're attempting this. So I think that they're gonna be kind of the guinea pig for this, and we're gonna see how it plays out with them.
Yeah, because it don't make sense to have these establishments right outside the door of the police station.
Why?
Yeah, people can regulate their own behavior. They just don't buy.
Or don't go to that store.
Well, the other thing that we can do, council, is we can let some of these other braver municipalities stretch out the law and see if it works. If Bernalillo and some of these other places can get away with 600 feet, we can come back and amend our ordinance at some point. But we ought to let them take on the risk and the liability of the lawsuits and see what happens. That might just be a smart way to go about it.
And what's a CH zone or CH itself?
A historic, cultural historic district.
Oh, okay.
And some of the other municipalities don't allow they'll allow retail sales in a cultural historic district like Bridge Street Plaza, but they don't allow mass production growing because of the odors and the high traffic and so not.
But this one says on homes within those districts, within those R1, R2, R3.
Correct. So you couldn't do any type of commercial cannabis activity in neighborhoods that were zoned for residential use. Let me give you an example. You go to downtown Albuquerque, you go to downtown Santa Fe, you get in the historic neighborhoods, the attorneys buy them all up and turn them into offices. Different municipalities have decided they don't want that with marijuana establishments. They don't want their historic districts, residential districts, turning into marijuana establishments. So what they've done is they said, no commercial marijuana activity in residential areas.
That makes it pretty confusing. Okay. So in other words, it's a work in progress document,
Yes, sir.
this ordinance, till it's completed, and that, you said the deadline was in January 1st? Or-
At the bare minimum, I mean, I would like to have something done by November or early December at the latest. I mean, the date keeps getting moved up, is when the state's going to allow people to start doing this and improving applications. So they keep moving up the date, we're going to have to move up the date.
Okay.
The state's not really being terribly user-friendly with this on this thing, so we're going to have to really get moving.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
So Scott, we approve this resolution here tonight. When the ordinance comes into effect, then this resolution will no longer be in effect, or we would?
We would have language in that ordinance that it replaces this resolution, that this resolution would be void after we do the ordinances.
And then going back to something that Councilor Rodriguez and I were just kind of here. So you mentioned, so these changes in red, because it was different, what you gave us in our packet. So these changes in red, you said were based off of the recommendation from the public input?
Some of it's from the public input. I've tried to discuss some of these so that you know what they are. The other,
I mean, I guess, I just wonder what I was going to say is, so we made these changes, but the county, you guys approved yours.
On August 11th.
So with these changes, will it, I mean, we're trying to make sure that they're similar, but now with these changes, then I don't know if you've seen them?
I've seen some of the changes. So Mr. Aaron has kind of implemented a lot of the retail, since that's primarily going to be a big challenge for the city. So his is going to be a little bit different. They're going to complement each other, but ultimately they will kind of appear a little bit different. Our biggest concern is production, regardless because of the fact of the large space. So we are dealing with a lot of production licenses that are coming in that they were allowed to start applying September 1st. So production is September 1st. Likely by January 2021, you'll be looking at other licenses, which would be for extraction, which is where they kind of remove a lot of the oils from the plant, and then it would become for retail in April of 2022.
Okay, so so we won't kind of be completely off from the.
No, we're not going to be completely different.
So that goes to my next question, and I know you had mentioned, you reworded it here where it says cannabis activity, but, there is an agricultural area here in this community right off of Cinder Road. And matter of fact, a couple of those property owners have, that said they're considering, doing that. So that is a big portion, between the river and Cinder Road. And, they have water rights and everything. So that might be an area that might boom for production, and it falls within. So that area is probably going to make sure that we regulate on that area. I know we're kind of depending at the county. They're going to stick in the county, but I could almost bet, based off of, they're going to jump on those properties because it falls within the city. And
sure.
Well,
And my understanding is that domestic wells are not allowed, that you have to use.
The state is regulating through the state engineer's office that controls all the water rights. That's part of the application process at the state level. If you're going to operate in a commercial environment, you have to show where you're getting your water from, that you have rights. Our concern here is going to need to be, we're going to need to consider what the impact's going to be on our municipal water supply and on our wastewater, because of the fertilizers and the different things that are used to extract the THC. We just can't have that dumped into our wastewater system. That will make things very difficult for the utility department. And we just got done overhauling some of that stuff, so we need to be on the front end of this and think through that. I expect that our ordinance will incorporate that.
All right. Mr. Span had a question.
Mayor Jones, just to clarify on the inspections, a business by code, we can go in at any time during normal business hours. Residents, we have a little bit more freedom than law enforcement does, but we still have to have permission of the landowner, the business of the homeowner, or an administrative law. So it gets very touchy when we start going and inspecting people's homes, because if I walk in and see another violation, I can't look away and just focus on the marijuana. So that, we want to tread carefully in that area.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero.
with that, I make a motion to approve Resolution 2138
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero.
with the amendment, and I guess I'm going to put a little pressure on Scott here, that we change the date to December 1st, 2022. If that's okay?
2022?
2021, sorry.
Okay.
December 1st, yep, 2021, got it. And then the other changes that we discussed that were included in the resolution.
Thank you. I'll entertain a second.
I second.
There's a second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Counselor Ulibarri Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. I'd like to take a second to recognize our attorney for jumping on this huge subject, and definitely thank Ms. Salas for her expertise, and we appreciate our partnership. Thank you, Amanda.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just, since we have Amanda here, also maybe we could, get together with, and I know we're gonna have a change, but, ETZ zones and stuff like that, that I think is very important. And I know we had started the communication and just sat on a table or a desk somewhere, but I think now's an opportunity to restart
Definitely.
those discussions.
Mr. Aaron and I work really well together, and I think between the commission and the council, we could get a lot of headway done in the ETZ zone, so I'm definitely open to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, item 3, request approval of resolution 21-40, adopting the Meadow City Express exact change policy. We have our transit manager, Marcelino Oval.
Welcome, Marcelino.
Council. So I'm here for resolution stating our exact change policy. We've actually never had a resolution in place. It came to my attention when we were asking about raising our fares just a little bit. I worked with Darlene and Legal on this, and she put it together for us. I don't know if you guys have read through it, but if there's any questions.
I do have a question. What's the reason for the increase? The public will know, will want to know.
So
I know gas is expensive and wages, but I want to hear it from you.
Okay. We've been, when COVID started, April 2020 is when we started not charging, and that was by direction of the state. So we've been operating free for about 1 year and 3 months now. And just looking at our numbers overall, an individual ride at the end of the day costs an average, and this is currently because we haven't had any revenue, of $42 a person to pay off everything. So what I was asking is just to increase from 75 cents to $1. So for one, you don't have to carry change. We don't carry change, but people don't have to carry the change. 2, we'll put it more towards a touchless system later on. Another thing is just, it's just easier to handle the dollar on passengers and on.
Okay, so the other question I have, Marcelino, is what was that $42 about?
That's the total admin and operating cost at the end of the day to run the business, run the department.
For one ride? What do you mean
One ride for one person.
like I call you and I want to go to Walmart, you're saying it costs us $42?
It costs between the state and the city, yes, $42 a person. And that increases with gas, any kind of repairs if we have. I can go back to, if we look at a good revenue month before COVID, let's say January of January of 2020. The ridership was 1,600 riders. The cost per passenger trip was $15.90 average per person. So it's actually taken a big jump, not charging.
Talk about the pass system, if you will.
The pass system, so we give an incentive when you buy a pass. A 10-ride pass goes for $7.50, and a 15-ride pass goes for, $15 pass gets you 20 rides. So it's 75 cents on the dollar charge for the pass. That was something that Darlene brought up, because I was actually going at $1 just straight across, but Darlene actually brought up to give the incentive to buy the pass over just paying the fare.
The other thing I'd like to mention, and these are just concerns from constituents, is when's the last time you re-examined what hours you operate? In other words, should we be operating on Saturday mornings from 10 to 4, or the other issue is that some businesses or some people might take advantage of a ride after 5, and maybe not every day, but maybe 2 days a week you offer your service until 7 o'clock or something. They're just asking when was the last time we examined our efficiency and our customer service.
So we're actually looking at that now. I just finished up our grant last week, and I did put in monies for extending our hours to 7 o'clock and weekends for about 6 hours Saturday and Sunday. Right now, we would need at least a couple part-time people just to cover the shifts that aren't covered, or that we're looking at covering, so weekend service and after 5 service.
Would that even be considering staggering the employees?
Right now, from January to now, we went up 190% in ridership. It sounds like a lot, but we've increased. We're not at fully non-COVID levels, but we wouldn't be able to move our staff to just weekends, 2 days, switch to 2 days for 2 days, and not run efficiently during the week, which are primary hours.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's good that you're looking at it, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, we've done some, we talk to passengers a lot, so that's where everything comes from.
Thank you. Mr. Romero?
Mr. Mayor, I went earlier today because at the meeting with Senator Ben Raines, I went to talk to Marcelino, just to give him it was a survey done by the 100% community. Within that survey, of course, there was, I think, 211, and I showed it to Leo also.
366 people?
366, I think 200 from the city of Las Vegas.
Respondents?
Responded 76%. Of course, there's some data there that, to me, I think one of the problems might be is there's not enough word as to how things are. They were saying, well, the bus stop is not close enough. Well, here in Las Vegas, we don't have bus stops, so I don't think that they understand the transportation system here in Las Vegas. So we need to make an effort, and Marcelino was saying, he was going to look into that. So we do have some transportation, some things to look at. He made a copy, and he did that. He did show me the numbers pre-COVID. What was it per month? It was
On ridership?
Yeah.
About 1,600 passengers.
Per month.
It averages about 1,500 per month.
And then during
right now-
COVID, just a few months ago, was what, 300?
Actually, in January, I believe, was less than 200.
Yeah.
This past August, I haven't caught up on the numbers, but
So within your report now, and I know the mayor was, even I was, when you gave me that information, I was like, well, how does it cost 40? But those were kind of the data with the low number. So you get your all the costs, salaries, all those, put them together, divide them by the amount of riders, and that's where you came up with the
Correct.
the $40.
It's in
So
a
that's
spreadsheet that I
just to
did.
kind of, because, I was surprised by that, and it took me a while, and he mentioned, and I know, so that's what happened there. So versus, when we had the 1,600 riders, then it's a lot cheaper, versus you only have
Yeah.
200 for all the vehicles, all the gas, all the, all the
Employees.
overhead and everything.
15
So,
compared to 42.
yeah. So I just, I was just telling, Marcelino, and I know, one of the questions, I know the Councilor, Montoya is probably going to ask about the RTD, is I think there's different ways, and I know that we've always ran the transportation department a certain way, but, in him seeing that survey kind of caught his attention, and he was willing to, say, well, maybe we need to do another survey, so that better fits what we need to do.
Our program.
Yes, yeah, not just the general, because that one was more like
Sure.
access to healthcare, stuff like that. So we need to, focus more on what we're doing. And I know the grant, is just for, what we're doing now, but we have to maybe expand. I know I have ideas is to, let's get one of those I know we get the RTD buses, but if we have a stop for, the city buses, and this, I think, falls within, with the RTD thing that comes from Mora, is that it comes to Vegas, but it really hasn't dropped. I guess it hasn't increased, the more riders, the more funding the city of Las Vegas gets. So we could incorporate that to where the city could kind of take over, instead of, he was telling me about a person that came in for a doctor's office, came in at a certain time, didn't get back home till 4 o'clock, just for a doctor's office. That's a lot of time. So
4.5 hours
that
later.
if we could sit down and maximize, where our buses are somehow involved in that versus right now they're coming in, but
It's not convenient.
we're not, any of those riders that are coming here, they're not getting on our
It doesn't come to
buses.
us. In the last Zoom meeting I was on, I'm not sure if you were on it, you probably were. They said in the 10 months they only had 99 riders total. And out of those 99 riders, we didn't get a single person through our doors, through our system. But one of my recommendations was to use us. They bring the people to us. We take them wherever they need to in town. That way that Mora bus can turn right back around, either take back the group from here or bring some more, and we could just rotate that throughout the day.
It's a good idea.
They've never really taken that into account, that suggestion.
The other, well, I'm sure you have lots of ideas, but the other idea that I really like is, maybe getting together and scrambling to see if it would be worth bringing a busload of people from Santa Fe on a Saturday or from the Balloon Fiesta to shop in Las Vegas and eat our delicious food and put them on a bus and take them back out, So maybe those are some of the.
See, but, those buses stop, I think, I can't remember the name of those ones, maybe Councilor Montoya.
Luna,
Coach. No. Those coach buses, they stop at, at the Department of Transportation. But, there's like a whole thing that, but again, based off of the grant, we can only do certain things. But if we start having those discussions now, for the next grant, we can maybe have a bus, if the bus comes from Mora at a certain time, well, we have one of our buses be prepared there and then take them wherever. So that way they do have, the stop and go, from point, not
Yes.
just kind of, they get there and then what happens? Well,
Our TD has their own stops. I believe there are 10 in total. So they stop like at Luna, Highlands, Hospital, State Hospital, and Walmart. Walmart was their biggest drop-off point. But if we could set something up to work with them, they bring us 10 people at a time. We get them to 10 different spots of town that maybe aren't on their list. Turn around, maybe they need to be back within the hour or something, whatever that time takes to go back and run that route back from, I think it starts in Holman. Starts in Holman.
Cleveland,
And they have a few stops along the way, and then, drop them off coming back.
How many riders did they have?
Did they have, from what they said, 99 riders in a 10-month period. It was a test run. But again, this was all with COVID and stuff. Nothing was the way they expected, or we expected either.
all right. So, at the end of the day, there is a benefit, not a benefit directly to transportation, but a benefit to the community, from, the people from Mora coming in and that. But it should be a total benefit to where, this transportation's helping out, we're increasing our numbers. So I think we really, need to have those conversations and maximize the benefit as a whole, not just them coming in. And even for their residents to come in for an appointment and have to stay in Vegas for 4 hours, unless they have a lot of money and they want to stay shopping downtown, then we'd be in favor of that. But
One of the issues was he was at the doctor's so early because there's only a certain, it was at the hospital. And his appointment wasn't until later, so he had nowhere to go. He didn't know that they could call us, so we could have picked him up, taken him somewhere to eat, Walmart to shop, and then brought him back to the Mora bus, or in our parking lot is one of the stops for RTD.
Well, the big difference there is that the Mora bus is a free service.
Yes.
And ours would be charging a fee.
I don't know if Mora's gonna start charging after it works out good, but free to charging just a little bit has a whole other group of people that ride, so in the end of the day, it's probably better just to charge a little something than to give it free.
Mr. Mayor, I would be more interested in increasing our services within the city and from Road to the plaza and around town on Saturdays. We have a lot of tourists between the months of March, April, May, June, and July, and August. In that period of time, if we could adjust our work week schedule for a couple of employees to work on Saturdays versus Mondays instead, and have that kind of service, because we do have a lot of tourists coming in during the Saturdays, during those months, that they wouldn't mind just catching a bus and going up and down.
But it still has to stay as a public transportation as far as drop off and pick up. Not really, I know they've come to me and asked before, maybe taking the scenic route or take the long route. It doesn't work that way.
But the grant can't link to that?
No.
No? Just strictly to point.
Strictly point A to point B, get where you need to. Public transportation, just stay open to everyone and pretty much everywhere they need to go.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You can't just get a group and, cruise around town, and even if you charge for it, that turns into a charter service, which is totally off our scope of work.
Take a scooter.
Well, the scooter probably helps somebody, but
All right.
I don't know how good those do.
Mr. Romero?
This is the important part, and I don't know, Marcelino, maybe a good thing to do would be, maybe when the state officials do come to Vegas, that maybe we could sit down with them and kind of get an understanding on how the state program works. So we could ask some of these, because we do. I mean, me personally, I'd like to see it, but even in the resolution tonight, and I know this falls within the grant,
And we just had a federal audit about a month ago. Every 2 years, they come in from the federal level and examine everything.
How did we do?
Paperwork we did really good. We only had a few recommendations, no deficiencies.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So basically, even on this resolution, it's a scheduled, right now, the grant, there's every trip has to be scheduled.
Yeah, within means, yeah. So, like during COVID, we didn't follow that policy as harsh. People just needed to get to the doctor, get to groceries. And on days where we're not as busy and somebody calls in needing to go even to Walmart, if it's not a necessity, we'll still take them. But yes, we ask that everything's scheduled. If you start telling people you don't have to schedule, then everything just gets thrown out. The whole organization of the rides and the schedules, especially for the people that do schedule the right way.
So we could do this, we could do this, but I just think, in order to move forward, let's have those discussions and talk with the state officials and see what we can do to expand without jeopardizing the federal grant, transportation grant.
Yeah, there's quite a few guidelines you have to follow.
So,
one of them is like that, it's point A to point B. Nothing extra, everything kind of has to be scheduled and set and picked.
Thank you. For the purpose of this resolution, 21-2040, what's the pleasure of the council?
I'll go ahead and make a motion, Mr. Mayor, to approve Resolution 2140, adopting the Middle City Express extra charge policy.
Thank you. There is a motion on the floor by Councilman Montoya. I'll entertain a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carried.
Thank you, and thank you for the good work, Marcelino.
Thank you.
Next order of business, please.
Item 4, request approval of resolution number 21-42, accepting a grant offer in the amount of $3,824,686 for the Transportation Project Fund grant. We have our Public Works Manager, Danny Vidal.
Mayor, Council.
Welcome, Mr. Gurule.
I'm here requesting approval of resolution 2142 to accept the grant offer that we were notified through the DOT that we did receive for Legion Drive. Stand for any questions.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution number 21-42, and I know we'll have some comments after, but I'll push this along.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Montoya. Discussion?
The thing is, thank you guys, thank you Maria, thank you Danny, thank you Councilor Ulibarri, it's a team effort, you know, all of us for, you know, making those phone calls and doing everything that we could. I know Danny was, we've kind of a couple of times been in argument, you know, saying, hey, I want these. He's like, nope, my project is Legion, we had it on the list, so thank you Danny for sticking to your guns and getting it done.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Mayor, Daniel, I'd like to get involved in the process of it, and also would like to get the Las Vegas City Schools involved in it also, because we have some issues there on Legion where, now they've scheduled pickups from parents in different hours of the day, but there for a while, they were all at one time, and it was blocking the whole Legion there on one side, and maybe we can do like a right turn lane or something with this project. And also, I know it includes ADA ramps and so forth, but I'd like to see if we can address the lighting situation at the same time, because it only has one side lighting, and that lighting is more yellow than bright, and the rest of the other side of the Legion doesn't have any.
Well,
I know some of the lighting that the park is going to have there is going to brighten up things, but I'd like to get involved with that project when it comes through. And you know, again, like the commissioner said earlier this afternoon, we thank the governor and all our legislators, because they're the ones that are responsible for all this funding that came down and trickled down, and they're pushing for bringing back people to work. So this is part of that kind of money, and I'm glad that we were able to obtain this money. Thank you.
Won't the, I have a question, won't the engineering portion of this project include all the concerns Mike has?
We could
As far
probably
as-
have like a pre-plan meeting with, you know, the constituents, the schools and stuff, and see what they actually want to bring on board as far
Okay.
as before the plans are done.
All righty. Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council? Oh, in roll
It's up
call,
for vote,
please,
Mr.
sorry.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next order of business?
Item 5, request approval of resolution 21-41, applying for a match waiver for the Transportation Project Fund grant in the amount of $191,234.30. Mr. Goulet?
Mayor, Council, I'm here seeking approval of resolution 2141 to apply for the match waiver for the Legion project. And I stand for any questions.
What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution 21-41.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. Second, please.
Second, sir.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. And Danny, thank you for all the work you're doing around town. People are noticing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, next order of business, item 6, discussion and direction on the donation of playground equipment to the City of Las Vegas by Las Vegas City Schools. We have our Parks and Rec Department Director, Stephen Aragon.
I just have a couple of questions. Why is this back on the agenda when we already discussed this?
So we wanted to put it on the agenda, Mayor, to seek approval to either move forward with spending money on these items that are seeing a lot of aging or go a different direction by purchasing new equipment for each of the wards.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Aragón.
Mayor, Council, I have a short PowerPoint presentation just so that we can kind of sum everything, the discussions that have been, and then present information on both the used equipment and new equipment. So on November 19, 2020, Las Vegas City Schools passed a resolution to transfer playground equipment. It accumulated to 8 pieces of playground equipment from Paul D. Henry Elementary and Legion Park Elementary. In the spring of 2021, the Parks and Recreation Department began completing training in order to properly relocate this equipment. In the process of the training, discovered there were within our own capabilities, not only in the department, but with the city, that this was not going to be possible. In July of 2021, we had received from a state contract vendor, I don't want to mention the vendor because the vendor has pulled their quote, but we had received to move the 8 pieces of equipment, and their estimate was $72,000. Beginning of this month, I met with School Equipment Inc., Mr. Lorenzo Moreno. They are a CES vendor. Mr. Moreno provided a free inspection. It's not a full inspection, it was a brief inspection of the locations and of the equipment. And I wanted to be able to go over each piece of equipment and what the findings were before he entered into, or we sought any kind of certified playground safety inspector to come down. He estimated that cost would be $5,000 to bring someone down to give an official report. But the unofficial report, we'll start with the equipment there at Paul D. Henry. This piece of equipment, I put it in 5 categories. The structural integrity that he had mentioned, what's the status of it, maintenance needed, relocation cost, and this was his estimate, parts cost if there was parts missing on the equipment, and what's the current value in his estimation of the equipment there. So with this piece of equipment at Paul D. Henry, structural integrity was good. It was missing parts, and there was some parts that needed to be replaced that were worn. He estimated that this piece of equipment, because of the size of it, would cost $15,000 to relocate, another $8,000 to replace and upgrade all the parts in order to certify the equipment again. And he felt that the value of the piece of equipment was $15,000. The next set there at Paul D. Henry, this is a piece of equipment that's over 30 years old. They do not make parts for this. It was missing many parts. There is no manufacturer that makes parts for it anymore. So later on in the cost summary, this piece of equipment has to be eliminated because we can't get the parts in order to properly move it for safety. Another piece of equipment that we had looked at transferring is this slide set. It is outlawed now because it's completely metal slides. It does not have a protective coating, so those can't be certified anymore. The last piece of equipment at Paul D. Henry, structural integrity is good, maintenance needed is none, relocation cost estimate was $9,000, and the current value of it is $10,000.
Jeez, that much to relocate it.
The reason they were talking, they don't know who installed and what's underneath, what they're going to find. Are they going to find that the beams are in good condition, or are they rotten? Or did the contractor at the time, how many yards of concrete did they pour into that one pole? So if they have to go and cut, bring in a welder to certify to weld it and reset it, that was where a lot of the cost was coming. Now the Legion Park, there is this swing set. He deemed it as in poor structural integrity. There was parts missing off of it. Relocation cost, he just, because it was in poor condition, said it was not feasible to move it, because it couldn't get recertified as safe. Next, there at Legion Park, the structural integrity was good. This piece of equipment was missing parts as well, and parts that needed to be replaced that were worn. Relocation estimate cost was $10,000 on this one. Parts cost $2,000, and he valued it as $9,000. This next piece of equipment, structural integrity was good, wasn't missing anything. He estimated a relocation cost of $4,000. No parts are needed, and it has a value of $8,000. Next piece of equipment, structural integrity is good. It needed quite a few of parts that were missing and parts that needed to be replaced. Estimated it'd be $13,000 to move. Parts cost would be $5,000, and the current value is $13,000. Next set of equipment, I know that the photo isn't great, but it's going to be the big set of playground equipment that's in the background. This, again, the integrity was good, but again, was missing a lot of parts and a lot of worn parts that needed to be replaced. He estimated, because of the size of it, that it would be about $15,000 to relocate, about another $7,000 in parts, and the current value of it was $18,000. The final set of equipment, there's two of these curvature slides. The structural integrity was good. A lot of worn, it wasn't missing any parts, but a lot of worn parts that needed to be replaced in order to certify it as safe. Estimated $2,000, and the current value is $4,000. There's two of these, so that would be double the cost. Right, right. So the cost summary for the 8 total pieces that could be moved, that could be certified if the parts were purchased and put on. The relocation cost totaled $74,000. The parts cost was $26,000. Estimated value of the equipment as it stands is $81,000. So the total relocation cost we're looking at is at $100,000. So I went roughly with just about the similar size of brand new equipment through Play Structures, CAS vendor that deals with a lot of the contractors that are on state contract. This is just one of the items that they call On Cloud 9. The cost you see up there is $15,289. Installation cost, they've given us an estimate. It's anywhere between whatever the price of the equipment is 40 to 45%. Is going to be the cost to install. So per piece of equipment, you're looking at $22,169. And just want to provide a cost summary. If you got 4 brand new pieces for each ward, all 4 wards, you have a purchase cost of $61,156, installation cost of $27,520, and for those 4 new sets, the total cost of new equipment, $88,676, roughly a savings of just under $12,000 versus relocating. But of course, that's half the number of equipment. But I wanted to present you folks with information from different meetings that we've had and different vendors. The vendor I had mentioned, Mr. Moreno, because of safety concerns and how hard it is to recertify used equipment, his company has stated today at 3:30 that they will not bid on it. So we've had a state contractor that gave us that $74,000, pulled it because of the same concern, and now we have another vendor from Albuquerque. This was a local vendor, the first one, the second one from Albuquerque. They've pulled it as well for relocating the used equipment. The reason being is they assume the responsibility as far as safety. So once they install and it is certified, if a child were to get hurt, they assume the liability because they were the ones that moved the piece of equipment. Scott, I don't know, I didn't talk to you before this, but I don't know if you have anything to add to that on the legal side.
It's pretty clear.
I'll stand for any questions.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, as you all are aware, I'm the one that asked Mayor and Council for direction to ask the Las Vegas City Schools if we could have this playground equipment. And at that time, Dr. Taylor and our city manager Taylor and myself went before the school board, and they responded in a letter saying that we could have it if we, removed it and reinstalled it at our own expense. At that time, I mean, we're not experts on, I'm glad that you did all that research and all that work. But we didn't even know at that time that you needed a certified person or company to remove and replace that kind of equipment and stuff like that. I thank you for the presentation. I think it's important that we bring this to light because our citizens are always calling me and telling me that we don't have anything for the kids. Our parks don't have nothing for them to entertain themselves with. Some parks have benches, some don't, and so forth. So I think this needed to be brought to light. And I mean, I'm one that I'll give direction and to the city manager to reply with a letter to the Las Vegas City Schools in gratitude for their offer and so forth, and deny the playground equipment at this point. But I think that with this monies that we're getting in, the 1.5 million, we could afford to buy some new sets and be safe and have our kids safe, because I know that on some of our parks, a lot of that equipment is just in that same condition, missing parts and so forth. And I mean, we're just really waiting for a liability to happen, some kid to get hurt. And I know that on some parks, I don't know, Stephen, I think that they need to be removed.
Yes, for example, we had our safety officer, Adrian Jaramillo, had done, according just to OSHA safety inspection there at Keys. So he had put in a request that we needed to remove both picnic tables. The slides needed to come out because they were the metal outlawed. Right. The swings are corroding. So we have all that on our schedule to move out, but I wanted to be able to present this first before just taking it out, and then there was concern, well, what happened to the equipment? We have that at all our parks. They've all been grandfathered in, except we have a couple new sets. I know we have one of the newest sets was at Crestone Park, but it's a very small set. Otherwise, the other ones it's been years.
And Mr. Mayor, with that, I would just like to request that Mayor and Council will give direction as far as if we want to go ahead and ask staff to bring us back forth a request or put it up for RFP for get some play equipment on this city parks for our kids to have something to do. And along with this, down the road, I know we're going to need some canopies. But for right now, if we could at least get some new playground equipment in these parks, I mean, I think that, the kids are in our town and the citizens deserve it. And I thank you, Mr. Maestas, and for the presentation, and again, for looking into it and making sure that you're taking care of the city.
It was a wonderful idea. As Parks and Rec Director, I'm very appreciative of Las Vegas City Schools. It's a wonderful idea, but when you look at the liability and the wear and tear of the equipment, it's a hard thing to sell to you folks that it's safe for our youth.
Thank you. So, what's the order of business, Cassandra? Do we have to give direction? Vote it down?
Direction on what the council's wish would be.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
Make a motion to give direction to the city manager to write a letter to city schools, and as Mr. Councilor Montoya had mentioned. But I'd also like to, I guess, make a motion that we give direction for staff to come up with a budget to where each one of us can have, one location, one set of playground equipment to where it's evenly distributed, I guess. So we could all, pick one piece of equipment, and we can all make an effort to improve parks. I know I'm kind of, I think I might be the one that has the disadvantage because I have probably two of the most used parks in the community, so I'm gonna have to.
You have Crestone and South Pacific, I believe, sir?
And Lincoln.
And Lincoln.
So I have the ones that are used probably the most, I don't know, but we'll leave it at that. I'll have to make the decision and.
Is it used more than Keys?
That's
And
one
just
great thing
different-
about our parks, they are all used.
Yeah, I think they're all used, and
Yes.
especially now with COVID opening up, and I've seen more people out there.
Would that be okay, Commissioner?
Yes, thank you. There's a motion on the floor for direction.
Mayor will get a choice too, so that way that helps me out.
Yes. I'll entertain a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Levari. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Levari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Levari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Just one other comment. Could we make sure that all this is taken care of before spring? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next order of business, and thanks for your work on this.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, folks.
Next order of business.
Mr. Mayor, item number 7, discussion and direction on vacated road on Garfield. We have our Counselor Rodriguez presenting on this item.
Yes, and I want to defer to Scott also, because Scott and I have been meeting on multiple occasions with one of the residents who brought this to our attention. And her property is located south of Garfield. And we've had numerous meetings. The previous city manager also had meetings with us on this issue. And I'm not sure to what extent the current city manager has been involved also with Garfield. But let me give you kind of a brief history, and then if Scott would chime in regards to the liability. This individual had come to me wanting to know kind of what was taking place with Garfield Road. And Garfield Road, once we started doing the research, and she had a lot of the paperwork also in some of the council meetings that had occurred. And this road, to our understanding, was vacated in the early I want to say 1991. Is that correct, Scott? Around
Yes,
1990, the council had made the decision to vacate this road. So from that point, they vacated it, but what was interesting is they did install a gutter. They installed gutters and sidewalk on the north side of Garfield, but they didn't do it on the south side of Garfield. Okay? The road has not been maintained by the city, so it's quite a big holes. It's not, you can't really drive on it. It's undrivable. So we started looking at it to see what the options were. And in the city council report, when they vacated at that time, they had mentioned about allowing the residents on each side of the road to be able to share or purchase half the road. That's what was made. Nothing ever transpired from that. It continues to deteriorate. It's a liability. It can't be used. But the other problem we also see with it is it has bad drainage in regards to the rainwater coming off of Grand. It floods the house of this one resident as soon as it starts to rain. There's no drainage, so her property is getting flooded. Maria has been very helpful in that regard in having her people bring sandbags, so she's been supplying sandbags. The other issue with this road is a lot of the speeders. Again, on the north side, they put a nice kind of gutter sidewalk and a rail so no one could run into the house, but none of that was done on the south side with this residence. And it was real concerning because this resident is, I want to say, close to 100% blind. She doesn't drive, but she continues to get flooded. Her area continues to flood. So she has asked if the city decides not to vacate it and to maintain it, if she could have 20 feet that would square out her property, and that 20 feet would go from the front of her house to the south side of Garfield. It wouldn't go into Garfield Road, but that 20 feet, she would then put a fence up, so she would be able to block, put some form of fence up. But then we're still kind of dealing with the drainage problem and repair of the road. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Scott?
Pretty well sums it up, and then the neighbor to the north did public, we've been trying to reach him for months, but with no avail, and then tonight we get an email saying he's willing to purchase the vacated portion, so another hot mess.
Yeah.
I would just like to also add that I've been meeting with the neighbor on the south side, Dr. Ortega, and for over a year regarding this. And Garfield is probably one of the most disgusting streets the city has. There is absolutely no way I would take my dog down there and my car wouldn't make it, much less a fire engine or an ambulance. And so the street is in very bad repair, and there isn't any railing on her side of the house, and which has resulted in several accidents, and a utility pole was the latest to be hit and knocked down the utility pole, and PNM rushed to fix that pole because it was supposedly one of the main poles that could not go down in that neighborhood. But there isn't anything to block from the steep decline right beside the Hillcrest restaurant, that steep decline, there's nothing to stop a car from going into her property. And she's very concerned about that. And so we've been meeting about this, and I am aware that the neighbor to the north had not responded and had not commented or whatever. For whatever reason, I don't know if her house wasn't there at the time that the street was, you know, where they did the gutter on one side and they didn't do it on the other side, maybe because there was no house there. I don't know. But, however, I'm concerned about her safety, definitely. I don't know about curb and gutter or even a railing for that area, but it is a prime location for flooding because it catches all the water off of Grand Avenue that goes off Grand Avenue down this way, and it goes down Garfield to the First Opportunity, which causes then a large flow of water. And as you can see, if you go there, you'll see the erosion, the water erosion, and pieces of asphalt as big as this truck missing from that street. So obviously it is a danger, and there is some issues regarding draining in that area. So I don't know. I know Dan has come to some meetings with us, and our attorney has come to, and our last city manager and community development director Elaine Ribald tried to see what it is that we could do to address this person's concern. And it's not just hers, it's really a public access problem. So at this point, I don't know, as the conversation is presented to you, I know that we can't make a decision to allow expenditures to fix that street and put curb and gutter right now. But this is sort of punting it to the next level of doing something for both neighbors. You know, that both neighbors benefit from this. And so I don't know at this point where we go, except to throw it on Danny's lap and Maria's lap, and on the manager's lap to see where the next step is going to come from.
Mr. Mayor, I got a couple of questions.
Mhm.
So this was vacated by a council of 8 back in 1991. And did the landowners ever survey each section to themselves? Or is there a survey done where they split the street in half?
A survey was done, a current survey was done by Ms. Ortega. And correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, because there was a lot of confusion with the survey. She stated that in working with the surveyor, that the residents on the north side had already received property from the city that allowed them to extend their parcel closer to Garfield. And what she had surveyed, according to her survey is extended into Garfield, correct? And over the gutter and sidewalk that is on the north side, according to the surveyor, correct? Or am I misstating that?
There is a current survey. The surveyor could easily go back and take the portion of the road and cut it in half. I'm sure that's could be done. So the question is, we do have a survey. It's not cut in half right now, but to have a surveyor cut that piece of Garfield Road in half would be.
And can this property be diverted back to the city?
The city
is
still
that an
owns
option?
it. The city still owns it. The city had, all the city did was vacate it as a
Okay.
road, so we're not maintaining it as a road, we just let it go. The city still owns it.
Well, if
So
we
the
still
city can
own
do
it,
whatever it wants with it.
if we still own it, how come we can't fix it? How come we can't put asphalt in?
There's no reason why we can't fix it, it's just it just takes a decision by the council, and it can be put on the roadmap again, and it can be brought up to speed. We're probably gonna have to put curb and gutter on that south side, because the water drainage is a problem right in there.
Well, I think that's the way to go. I mean, if it's our street and then they gave it to them, they never took it and they never did surveys and they never did anything with it, well, it's still ours and we should just get it fixed.
Council never gave it to them, the council just vacated it as being used as a road, but the council never gave it to anybody.
Mr. Mayor? Well, that was a bad decision.
Mr. Mayor?
You know, just to be open and transparent, I would like to know for the record that both neighbors are cousins of mine. One's maternal, one's paternal. At the end of the day, I'm here to represent what's in the best interest of the city. I know both parties are interested in purchasing the property, cutting it in half, but I think there's still too many liability issues. Even if we were to do that, all that drainage, we're still going to have to address it, so it makes no sense to, we can't give the property. Back in 1991, at that time, there was no anti-donation clause. Now there's an anti-donation clause. So as far as giving properties, we can no longer do that. We have to survey whatever piece of property, and then from there, they would have to purchase it, so there would be no, giving away any property at all. I think the right thing to do here would probably be for the city council to unvacate this road, and at that time, then we could, no matter what we do, if you guys, it's up to you guys. I'm just, like I said, both parties are interested. I'm here to represent the best interests of the city, and sitting here in my chair, I think the best interest is for the city to keep it and to make, I know, we can't afford to repave it, but I think we could put in, some infrastructure to help to alleviate, and it's not only these two residents it's affecting. There are residents in the back that use that. I don't know how they do it, but they get through there, and there's the alley back that they use that road to go to the different areas. So it's not just these two residents, it's others that even if we were to give it, that's totally unfair to the ones that are using it in the back side. I say this is my opinion, let's unvacate this road, let's see what it takes to, make some repairs. I know there's some, some corner issues or something like that, but, at that time, if as long as the road still maintains, I know we just approved a piece of corner that, went in and we gave some, that, at our last meeting where, there was a corner in order to, make things that needs to be done to where, they could properly fix, that side, Mr. Ortega on that side. As long as we're not coming into the street, and also, there's also the aware that, the city can later on, go and put a sidewalk if, she's using that part to save her property or whatever it is she's doing. The best interest would be to just unvacate it and, see what Danny and Maria can work out and, make it to where not only those two are gonna be able to use that road, but so will the residents in the back. And that would be my suggestion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Romero.
Do we have funding? Do we have funding, extra funding that we could allocate to that, Maria, in your department at all? Is there any leeway with any construction that's going on?
Mayor, Council, not with any construction we have right now, but I can talk to the city manager about some potential other funding opportunities, but
Okay.
I'll talk to the city manager about that.
Yeah, because it's a short street. It's not even a whole block, so, or maybe three-quarter block. But, Mr. City Manager, do you have any research or any information or any recommendations on your end of it?
So, Councilor Montoya, I would agree with Councilor Romero that the council would unvacate the road and give us direction to do an assessment with an engineer to get budgeting, for budgeting purposes, to bring it up to code.
Okay.
That would be my direction, or that would be my suggestion. There is a lot of residents that access their house through the alleyway and use that roadway. There's only one other entrance to there, so if there was a train derailment or first responders needed to get in there, it'd be virtually impossible to access that area.
And who maintains that alley? The railroad or the city? Is it a city alley or city?
I don't know if it's BNSF property, but I can
Okay.
find that out.
Yeah, all right.
It looks like it's the city, sorry.
Well, there's an easement that BNSF, I know on the other side of the city property, but, well, not city property, it's within the city limits, and I know there was one area that was trash cleanup, and I think it was city manager Trujillo at the time. He had to work, even just to get some of the trash cleaned up, he had to go through hoops just to get trash off of the railroad property, so that might be a BNSF there.
I think, Mr. Mayor, I think, Mr. City Manager, I think there's consensus that we proceed in that direction. Move on, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Tom. So is that all you need, or do you need a public
motion to do that?
Can I ask, can I interject one more question, a couple more questions? Could you, Maria, when you're looking at it, look at, does the city want to consider putting a sidewalk and gutter? But how does that affect if we extend Ms. Ortega to 20 feet so she could square out? Because right now it's angled and the flooding kind of goes right onto her porch. Right. The water kind of flows onto her porch, so, I think those things also have to be taken into consideration. And then the other thing is, do we want to give the residents an opportunity to present anything regarding what they would like to see happen with this road? So those are two questions, I guess.
Council, I think if it is unvacated, it comes back to the city, then obviously we need to look at what we need to do to meet code and
Okay.
requirements. I would presume we would obviously keep the property owners on both sides informed of whatever we were going to do.
Okay.
But we'll have to look at all of that. I don't think we can make any other commitments other than if that is the direction that's unvacated, then we need to do what we need to do to
Okay.
make it usable.
Thank you. Councilman Montoya mentioned that it was a discussion and that it was not an action item, so we'll
Right.
just move on to the next. Thank you.
But, Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
it says say direction, so at that point you can, to make it official, you can, give, am I right, Mr. Scott?
Well, I think direction was given to start the process, to see what it looks like, to get some information When they get a plan, they can get back to council and figure it out.
So is there an official, I guess the question, is there an official method or process to unvacate?
There is, but I think that we're gonna have to put that on as an agenda item.
Yeah.
We gotta give public the notice that we're gonna unvacate it and allow for public input and all that.
And that wasn't done tonight. This, just the discussion and direction. So,
Correct.
they'll come back. And you can have both sides here on a
Okay.
public hearing.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Item number 8, discussion and direction on returning to virtual meetings for all boards, commissions, and committees. Mr. Mayor?
So it's self-explanatory. There's been an uptick in COVID cases. People on committees are afraid to gather. They're wondering if there's a possibility for a temporary stay of maybe providing the meetings to be held via Zoom. And is there any impact on your office, Cassandra, as far as our IT, to see that those committees are meeting by Zoom?
Well, we would give that direction if that's the wish of the mayor and
Okay.
council. And then IT would have to make sure and set that up with each board, commission, or committee.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
Just for a clarification, I know Councilor Rodriguez brought this up, but we did as a council already adopt the alternative to where, like if you were gone, that we, am I correct? In that resolution we passed?
You're talking about the open meetings resolution? It
No,
was-
didn't we just,
Yeah, we passed
So
something.
there was one for in-person, I believe.
Yeah,
and-
we made a modification that if something would happen, that somebody would be able to join
for the council one, we just, I think it was just last
two,
month?
two meetings
I'll
ago.
have
It's just
to-
limited to
Yes.
the council.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify that we already have the option to where, you know, that option is there for us, for the council. This one's more specifically to boards, commissions, and committees.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. And this gives people the option to attend in person, but if they can't because of COVID restrictions, then they can Zoom in, correct?
The
It's not
item on
taking-
the item on the agenda is to have all the boards, committees, and commissions do it through, virtually through Google Meet.
Yeah,
Is that what your
Uh-huh.
intent was, ma'am?
yes. And that's
So it would not be in
temporary.
person.
That's temporary.
Yeah.
So no in person, just,
No.
okay.
And that's temporary until, and I'd like to even see a date put on there, maybe give it 2 months to see where things are. Because I really like public access. And I believe some people don't have the equipment to watch a movie via Zoom. And so for consideration of those people, I'd like to go back to public access, in-person access at some point. So maybe we could do this for 3 months and see where we go from there. Is that
That's the wish
okay?
of the council. They would make a motion and include that date.
Okay.
I just want to clarify this one, Mr. Mayor. I know you're saying it's temporary, but I mean, there's been discussion, and I've seen a couple of the boards and commissions. I was in one yesterday. And there's the impression that some of these boards can do as they please, and no matter what this council sets as guidelines. And I want to make this clear, you know, this one will only be temporary because of COVID. So, I mean, even in the committee meeting that I sit in, of course, I have a say, but I don't have a vote, and maybe you could clarify to me later on, Scott, on that, but, you know, we had committee members that saying, well, we're gonna make it available. Well, it's the direction of the council to make that decision, but I was just there to listen and you know, kind of be a liaison, but this one here, I want to make sure that it's temporary. That's your suggestion at this time. Okay.
Okay, and we could put a date till December, if that's suitable. That's 3 months. And reconsider it at our first meeting in January?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Do you need a vote?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to give direction to return to virtual meetings for all boards, commissions, and committees due to the increase of COVID cases, that they will be meeting via Zoom until December 31st, 2021.
Got it.
There's a motion on the floor by Dr. Rodriguez, second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Pass.
Mr. Mayor, just clarification, not clarification, but how, Scott, on the, before I make this vote, your mask and your COVID proclamation, when is that till?
Well, tell the governor, it's actually a governor's mandate. The mask is a governor's mandate. So they're going to continue the mask, is what I hear today.
For 1 more month.
For 1 more month. And so to see where they are at that point, and I think it's a month and 14 days is what they stated. So they would do it for a month and then they would evaluate the number of cases after that.
So come your first council meeting in November, we'll know whether we'll have a state mask mandate at that point, and you guys can revisit all this stuff. I mean, we don't have to wait till December 31st. COVID cases go way down, or something else happens, or they go way up, whatever happens, you guys can modify it as you need to, just put it on an agenda item and let's bring it up. We're not necessarily locked in until December 31st, depending on what happens between now and then, you guys can.
Should I just mention that until further notice? Or until?
However, my issue with December 31st is this. Come January 1st, are they going to be meeting in person? Because you haven't met for your first January council meeting to take any action. So it's a little safer to say until further direction of the council, because you may want to change it earlier, you may want to change it later. I hate to artificially fix a day, because we don't really know what's going to happen.
So if things change and the council decides, no, it's time to come, just kind of like the way we did, what we did.
Okay. So I'll amend that motion. That all meetings for boards, commissions, and committees will be done virtually until further notice
From the council.
from the council.
Do you agree, Counselor Ulibarri?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Roll call?
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Pass.
Thank you, Mayor.
Counselor Ulibarri Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Rodriguez, a second by Counselor Ulibarri Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, you need to get back to my vote after the pass.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes. Thank you.
Motion carries. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next order of business, is there a need to go into executive session?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Make a motion to enter executive session for personnel matters according to NMSA 1978, H 7? 87? 87.
There's a motion on the floor to enter executive session. I'll entertain a second.
I'll second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Counselor Ulibarri Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
make a motion to return to regular session after being in executive session. And I'd like to note for the record that only those matters specified in the motion for closure were discussed and no action was taken.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor by Councilman Romero. I'll entertain a second. Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Mayor?
There's a motion on the floor to adjourn our meeting by Mr. Montoya, second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.